Alright guys, how's it going? I'm the Crown Fiend, and today we're doing What If Deku Was Deathstroke, the movie. Which means I'm just going to put the whole series into this one long video, and I hope you guys enjoy this. So about yesterday, one of the two, or actually three videos that was supposed to go up yesterday went up, and two of them actually had their audio so badly distorted that I just could not upload it in that state. So I'll have to re-record those at a later date, which I could have done that today, but I just did not feel like re-recording the same video. So yeah, this one's actually going to be a dedicated video. So this video is dedicated to a very good friend of mine who's on the Discord server, link in the description below. He's known as Blackarod on there, and this video is like really just help him get out of a dark spot that he's in. And we talked about this. I kind of filled him in on some of the plot points here and there, but not the whole story on how it's going to go. So I know you're going to be watching this, man, and just I hope you enjoy this, because this is going to be a good one. I can already tell, and as you already know. So also I gotta get a few other things out of the way, but to finish up what I was saying, man, I hope you feel better soon, because I know what you're going through. I've experienced that myself, so I know, man. I know what you're going through. So hopefully this will help you feel better. But shout out to you. And secondly, this one is going to be for a more mature themed, and it's going to have a lot of dark content in it, such as child trafficking, selling of little children, abuse, domestic abuse, sexual abuse. It's going to have a lot of mature themes in this, along with a lot of deaths and a lot of gruesome ways. So I just want you guys to be aware of what you're getting yourselves into, because I'm not going to pull any punches whatsoever with this one. And another thing, this one is going to be where UA is a college and not a high school. So I just want you to know all the characters will be aged up appropriately. So with that out of the way, I hope you guys will enjoy this video, and as always, I'm the Crown Fiend, and if you're going to enjoy this video and you find that my content is to your liking, I would appreciate if you guys would subscribe, click that notification bell so you never miss an upload, like the video, comment about your thoughts of the video, and also click the links in the description to follow me on Twitter, join the Discord server, and yeah, without further ado, let's get into the origin story, and let's have fun with this on What If Deku Was Deathstroke, the movie. So where we're going to start this up as is before Deku was born. So Inko was in a relationship with one Hisashi Midoriya, as Hisashi was being a bit of a creep with Inko, always touching her inappropriately, feeling her up, as Inko would tell him not to do that, but Hisashi didn't really listen. He would do the stuff that he wanted to Inko, as touching her on her tits, her ass, rubbing her pussy out in public, just to kind of publicly humiliate her or make sure that she was put in her place. And every time they had an argument, Hisashi would beat Inko. And it wouldn't just be like a slap here, no, he would physically punch Inko, kick her, as he would oftentimes tell her that, they're going to do it, as he would just push her onto the bed and Inko would just submit after that point. As that would happen, Inko would eventually get pregnant, as she would tell Hisashi that she's pregnant, as Hisashi would beat her, as he would ask her why the hell wasn't she on birth control, as she said, well, since you made me quit my job, I can't afford it, and you're not buying me any, as Hisashi would say, oh, so this is my fault now, huh, bitch, as he would beat her a few more times, but that is actually when Hisashi would be, arrested, because Mitsuki would have had enough at this point, and she was not going to let her best friend, who was pregnant, mind you, be continually beaten. So Hisashi would be arrested and escorted to jail, as Inko would look at Mitsuki, as Mitsuki would tell her that she is pregnant as well. So Inko would actually stay with Mitsuki and her family for a bit of a few months, because Inko not being able to work because of her pregnancy, it would mean that her and Mitsuki would have a support group going. As Deku would be born, as he would have the green hair, like in canon, as Inko would be relieved that he didn't have Hisashi's hair color, as she would call him Izuku Midoriya. And pretty much, Bakugo and Deku would grow up as kind of surrogate brothers in a way. They would live in the same house as each other, except, as they started to age a bit and got into kindergarten, basically Inko and Deku would move out, and Bakugo would become more and more aggressive towards Deku and would start bullying him profusely. Even though they grew up as brothers, like, Bakugo would still bully Deku. It really wouldn't change a whole lot, because Bakugo's superiority complex would constantly be egged on by the people around him, not his family life, but his social life outside of his family, as they would pick on Deku, and that would encourage Bakugo to pick on Deku more and more, as then the abuse would start turning physical, as they would beat on Deku, all ganging up on him, and Deku would come home beaten and bloodied, as Mitsuki would punish Bakugo severely, but that would only make Bakugo beat Deku more and more. And it got to the point to where, Deku was coming home, and Inko couldn't afford to get him actual medical care anymore. She was already in debt enough as it is, and she just couldn't keep up with the finances, and she didn't want to move back in with Mitsuki, because that would just be intruding on them, and they had enough going on themselves, as Inko's parents didn't want anything to do with her whatsoever after Deku was born, because they didn't want Hisashi's spawn being, brought into their house or being in the family at all. They actually wanted Inko to just abort Deku, as Deku would be just trying to get his mother's affection. She would scream at Deku for even just being born, as she would emotionally abuse Deku every day, and it would eventually turn to physical abuse on top of what Bakugo was doing already. And that's when, Deku would find out that he was quirkless at the age of 5. And Inko would just be like, look at you, you couldn't even become a hero if you wanted. You're never going to be worth anything. You're quirkless. It's just useless. I'll never get out of this debt. Now I have a quirkless son. Why is my life so much of misery? Why is it hell? What did I do to deserve this? As she would just start beating Deku even more and more. And that's when an offer would come to Inko, as she would be given the opportunity to sell her son to an organization, as they were going to be trying to, experiment on people, but they needed quirkless samples to really test the drug to its fullest extent. And pretty much, Inko would just look at Deku. He would beg and plead his mother not to sell him, not to, abandon him, as Inko would get down in Deku's face and say, "I'm sorry, you're too much of a burden. I can't handle you. So I'm going to sell you and get myself a better life. I don't know what's going to wait for you with these people, but it's just not my problem anymore. You were always unwanted. No one ever cared about you, and I never loved you." As she would hand the child over to them, as Izuku would start crying profusely, his heart was broken, his soul was shattered, as Deku wouldn't fight back anymore. Whatever anybody wanted to do to him, they could. He would just cry about it by himself. As Inko got transferred the money, all $9 million, as she would just be jumping up and down for joy, as Deku was taken to a military testing facility, as he would be tested on with this new drug cocktail, as he would be profusely just beaten and injected with drugs, the same type of experiment procedures that happened to Slade Wilson, but it was a stronger set, meaning his regeneration would be faster, it would be more potent, his overall physical strength would increase dramatically, and his speed and agility would be 10 times what Slade's are. As he would just scream in so much pain as Deku nearly flatlined, as he would be barely alive after that, but the drug shown no sign of actually working. So they would write Deku off as a failure and sign up the papers for him to be disposed of. But one person made a phone call. They called a Slade Wilson and set up a contract with him. The contract is to rescue Izuku Midoriya before he is targeted for disposal. As pretty much Slade would take up the offer and he would say, "No charge. I'll do this one for free." Because Slade has a soft spot for anything that's doing anything bad to children. He has no tolerance for that. And this is a bit of an older Slade, so he's already had to deal with the loss of Rose, Jericho, his wife Addie. He already had to deal with all of that. So he spends most of his time just working on mercenary contracts. So he would gear up in his DeathStroke suit, which we're just going to give him the comic DeathStroke suit that he used when he had the God Killer blades. As pretty much Deku would be walking back to his cell and he would be in there crying in the middle of the night when the alarms would start blaring, as he would see blood be splattering everywhere, all over the walls, the floor. It was all so bloody, as that's when Slade would see Deku, and he would see the pain that the child was in. He would cut down the bars, opening up Deku's cell, pulling him out, and telling him everything was going to be okay, that they won't ever hurt him again. And Deku just in a state of just pure instinct, just says, "Train me to be like you. I've got nothing left." As Slade would say, "Well, I always needed a protege, so why not?" And keep in mind, Deku is still 5 years old at this point. So this is already like a lifetime amount of hell that this kid has already had to go through. And it's not going to get any better from here. So basically, DeathStroke would take Deku back to Gotham City, where he would raise Deku, but it wouldn't be a fatherly son type of raising. No, this would be purely just mentor successor. That just flatline right there. As Deku would just be okay with that. He doesn't want another father. He doesn't want another mother who will just sell him off or just beat him for no good reason. So pretty much Deku would start his immediate training with Slade, as Slade would homeschool Deku, making sure to drill in all types of knowledge into him academic-wise. Deku would be incredibly smart, but Slade would also drill in military tactics, thinking, and how to read people's movements to Deku, as Deku's life would consist of everyday, tactical military training, and on top of that, he would have combat training, weapons training, weapons training, as he would be a master marksman with the pistols, automatic rifles, sniper rifles, anything, throwing knives, shuriken, as he would also be a master of, weaponized hand-to-hand combat with swords, staff, and bare-fisted combat, along with any and all forms of melee weapons. So he would be very, very well done, since he would be spending 15 years of his life being trained by Slade constantly, every day, with weight training on top of that. So pretty much Deku would be training with Slade for the next 15 years in Gotham, as during those 15 years, when Deku turned 15, so about 10 years down the road, Deku would be basically forced by Slade to start carrying out contracts as a mercenary, building up his own financial revenue. As Deku would take on contracts, he would borrow an old costume from Slade's, the costume that you're seeing in the thumbnail right now, as basically he would immediately just be taking out any high target priority political figures in every country around the world. America, Brazil, France, Europe, just all over, even back in Japan, which is where he would actually spend a lot of his missions at. Since he is Japanese, he's able to go into Japan relatively unnoticed. And pretty much he's able to carry out a lot of high target priority kills over there, as he would do that for the remaining 5 years. As pretty much when he turned 20 on his 20th birthday, Slade would tell Deku it's time for him to fight against Slade himself for the title of DeathStroke. This would be a death match, and it's not over until one of them is dead. Deku wouldn't have any compassion, any remorse, or sympathy. He would be a hardened killer to the bone. All he would ever know at that point is killing, combat, and making sure you follow through on the contract and orders. He would have fought in several wars all the way up to this point, so Deku would be ready for them. As he would draw his swords, as he would look at Slade, as Slade would ready himself for battle, as Deku would fight him and would go toe to toe with him, beat for beat, even surpassing him, being faster, more agile, stronger. he would overpower Slade, and then with the final swipe of his sword, he would decapitate Slade. As Slade's head would roll on the ground, Deku would take the mask off of Slade's face, saying, "I am DeathStroke now." As he would wash the mask, as he would fully complete his costume, donning the mask and claiming the mantle of DeathStroke, as Slade would have a holographic message for him saying, if he's calling himself DeathStroke now, that means he passed the final test. And, of course, Deku would notice all of Slade's assets, money, buildings, armors, weapons, all of them were being transferred over into Deku's name. As he would see his bank account fill up with millions upon billions of dollars, Deku would be sad. He would then say, it's time to move back to Japan. So he would move back to Japan, as Deku's pretty much set up, as he is a well-established mercenary. However, he would still look for a job, not really interested in going to college. But he would come across a job listing for UA College, as he would look and see that they want a combat director. Deku would submit his resume saying that he was a former soldier who fought in several wars, and they would honestly accept Deku. So Deku will be working at UA as a combat director. So pretty much until then, Deku decided that he would go out as DeathStroke and try to clean up the city, save some kids if he could, because Deku also does donate a lot of money to charities all around the world, and most of those charities go and fund orphanages for kids so they can have better housing conditions and all of that. So Deku just has a soft spot for saving children and hates human traffickers and child abusers. So pretty much he would be running along as he would see these people that were surrounding this young girl who had pink skin and pink hair, as they would be trying to sexually assault her. As pretty much Deku would jump down there in his DeathStroke attire, and he would say, "You have 3 seconds to leave, or you can die. Your choice." As they'd say, "Yeah, right, heroes don't kill." And Deku says, "Do I look like a hero to you?" As they'd say, "Oh, get a load of this guy." And Deku would just say, 3 seconds are up. You're dead." As he would pull out his pistol and shoot them right in their heads, killing 2 of them, as a third one would try to run away, as Deku would shoot him in the kneecaps, walking over there slowly, dragging his sword across the pavement, and then he would drive it right into the back of the guy's neck, as he would pull it out and sling the blood off of the sword, as he would put it back in its sheath. As he would look back at Mina, who, yes, it is Mina, as he would just say, "Are you alright, miss?" As she would say, yeah, thank you." As Deku would just say, "No problem. Now get on somewhere. Streets ain't safe." As Mina would say, "Thank you. What's your name?" As Deku would just say, "It's DeathStroke. Now go." As she would leave, and Deku would climb back up to the rooftops, where there would be a pro hero waiting for him, saying, I know you tried to save that girl, but you still killed those people. I have to take you in." As he would look and say, "Okay, look, you don't want this fight. Trust me. Walk away now, and I'll pretend like this never happened. As Deku would turn his back and start trying to run off, as that's when he would notice the hero is chasing after him. So, Deku decides to lead this guy on a chase, as he would go from rooftop to rooftop, jumping far distances, as he would notice this pro hero is using some kind of scarf to keep up and close the distance. So he would stop spinning around and throwing several different objects at him, from shuriken to throwing knives, as the hero would dodge the more noticeable ones, as Deku would throw a secret, super thin one, hitting him right in the eye, as he would scream, as Deku would rush over there, taking out a sword and gutting the hero. As then he would, spin the hero's neck back, as he would take it underneath his armpit, pulling up, snapping the neck. As he would look through the hero's belongings, as he would see the name of the hero is Eraserhead. As he would say, "Damn, this guy's a UA teacher. Well, oh well." As he would have this weird and kind of sadistic idea on how to deliver the body in a more noticeable way. As he would take Aizawa's body and just crucify him to the gates of UA, as he wouldn't be found until the next morning, where Deku would finally return back to his penthouse, and he would get onto his bed after taking off his gear, throwing it to the ground, as he would lay down, close all the curtains, and would fall asleep. The next day he would wake up and turn on the evening news, as it would be around 5 in the afternoon when Deku would wake up, as he would have a short buzz cut hairstyle, military regulation. Slade was very strict on that, as he would see that they found Aizawa's body, and they would see a statement from UA on there that whoever this villain is who was able to kill Aizawa, that just so you know, UA will not be threatened to shut their doors at this, and this is a complete and utter disrespect of a human, of someone who had life, and that they will be hunted down for the rest of their days, so it is better to come forward now. And Deku shuts off the news as he would step into the shower, taking a hot shower to calm his mind a bit, as he would mix in his herbs into a tea. He would pour himself some, drinking it, observing the view of the city from his high-dollar penthouse, as he would say, "Well, gotta say I love the view. Best thing that could have happened to me was being taken under by Slade. So, I guess I better put the title of DeathStroke to good use." And during this time, there's been a certain somebody tracking DeathStroke. A certain person named Nightwing. As he would figure out that fits DeathStroke's MO, as him and Batman would discuss that this isn't like the usual Slade Wilson. This is somebody new, and they don't know who the new Deathstroke is, so they're gonna have to find out carefully. But while that's going on, basically, Deku's getting ready for his first day at work, because it is time for UAs to introduce their teachers and really get all their new teachers caught up to speed with what they expect, and to have everything that's just laid out for them on what they will be expected to do. So Deku would walk in there in a suit, as he would tell them he's Izuku Midoriya, the new combat instructor for UA, as they would say, "Oh, the soldier. I gotta say, you dress up a lot nicer than what we would typically expect from a soldier." As Deku would say, "Yeah, I get that a lot, but oh well. Anyways, what am I to be expected to do?" And they say, "Well, we're not expecting you to teach any other subject whatsoever. You're strictly here to be a combat instructor, as the job title would suggest. We're paying you this much because villains are getting a lot more gruesome, as you could tell from the recent Eraserhead fiasco. I hope that's not going to deter you," as Deku says, "I'm a soldier. I've seen worse things than that." And pretty much it's not even on the top 10 list of the most fucked up things I've seen. As that would surprise Nezu a lot, as he would say, "Well then, I hope that you'll be accustomed to coming in at a later time than 6 in the morning, because our school doesn't start until 9. As Deku would say, "That's fine with me, I get to sleep a little bit longer." As basically Nezu says, "Okay, so you are a normal person." Deku says, "Of course I am. I'm an ex-soldier. I've adjusted to civilian life." And basically Nezu says, "Oh, that's really nice to know." But he would tell Deku that he doesn't actually have to come in until noon, as that's also another reason why he's getting a lot more pay than the other teachers, is because his hours are going to be shorter. As Deku would just say that's fine with him. He's getting paid salary, right? And they say, "Yes, you are salary pay." And Deku's like, "That's fine with me then." So basically, Deku, he's got a feel for everything that he's going to be doing, and he asks, is there any restrictions that he's not allowed to do during his teachings? Because the way he was taught was a very hands-on, brutal, beat-down type of style. And basically, this is when he would meet, Vlad, as Vlad would say that he wants to test this guy's combat skills to make sure he's actually up to the challenge and didn't just lie on his resume. As Deku's just like, "That's fine with me. I figured someone would doubt me." As Nezu just says, "Well, sure, why not?" And that's when Vlad would try to test Deku, but Deku would grab him by the arm, sweep his feet, and he would dislocate Vlad's shoulder in one solid movement, as he would be on the ground before he even knew what hit him. Nezu, that was watching everything like that, knew that Deku just performed a very difficult move with ease, especially for someone in their early 20s. As he would say, "My, you must have trained for a very long time to master that, and to pull it off with such ease and fluidity. Tell me, how long have you been training?" Deku would say, "Ever since I was 5 years old. I've been training for 15 years. As basically, he would automatically trump a lot of the teachers when experience of hand-to-hand combat. As Deku would say, "So, what type of combat am I training them? Hand-to-hand, weapons, or what?" As basically, Nezu would say, "Quirked combat," and Deku's like, "You do know that I'm quirkless, right?" As Nezu's just like, "You're quirkless? Are you serious?" And Deku's like, "Yes, I'm serious, but it's not that big of a deal. I've taken down a lot of quirked people before. All they are is just big, loud, talking, fucking retards. Oh, my quirk this, oh, my quirk that. Yeah, shut the fuck up already. Nobody gives a damn about your quirks." As pretty much, like, Nezu just senses that Deku is a very hardened man. After all, his battles have just been extraordinarily brutal, as he's read in Deku's reports, which were very detailed reports. So he definitely knows Deku could kill people if he so chose, but there's nothing in his reports that would insinuate to him being DeathStroke. So he really just lets it slide. After all, in Deku's resume it says ex-soldier, so. Anyway, Deku pretty much just leaves for the day as he would head back. And he would stop by the grocery store to pick up a few things for his dinner. And that's when he would see the pink-skinned girl again, as he would just say, well, I'll be damned. As she would walk up to Deku and just say, you know, you seem pretty familiar. Have we met somewhere before? And Deku's like, I don't believe so. But if we have, then I'm terribly sorry, but I don't remember. And she would just say, oh, it's probably just my imagination. As she would say, what's your name? As Deku would say, the name's Izuku Midoriya. What's yours? As she would say, my name is Mina Ashido. It's nice to meet you. As Deku's like, Mina, that's a nice name. I like it. As pretty much he would say, would you like to join me for dinner? As Mina's just like, well, are you sure? Deku's like, it's no problem to me. As he remembers that he kind of left his DeathStroke gear just lying in his bedroom floor. And he's kind of panicking if she'll say yes, he's really gotta hurry. Mina eventually just turns him down though, as she gets a call from her family as she says she has a family emergency that she's so sorry. But if she could get his number, then she'll be more than happy to hit him up sometime about it. As Deku would just say, sure, as he hands Mina over his contact information. As Deku has to make sure it's not a work number, because he does have a lot of those. As pretty much he would just like set up and he would get a call. As Deku would answer the call as it would be business. He has a target, and his first target marked for elimination is a man known by the moniker Twice. As Deku would accept the contract, since the person who's fronting the bill for it is offering him a small fortune to hunt down and bring Twice in alive. Not dead, but alive. So Deku would be very interested in this contract. So he gears up and heads out. And as soon as he does, he's looking around as he notices he should be in the right area from what he's been told. That the guy usually comes back to this rundown place. And Deku's looking all over. And then he spots him Twice because of the mask. So he walks into Twice's house right behind him. As Twice freaks out and tries to attack Deku, and Deku cuts his arm off. As Twice is screaming, as Deku kicks him in the face, telling him to shut the fuck up. He's coming with him, and if he's got a problem with it, he'll just cut off one of his legs. As Twice would just say, but I'll bleed out. And that's when Deku takes and has a flare as he takes it to Twice's arm and cauterizes the wound. As Twice is screaming in a lot of pain, Deku just knocks him out and carries him over there with him. As the person who had the contract for Twice would actually be the man who is the info broker for the League of Villains, because Twice was apparently causing some ruckus, and Deku was given the contract to hunt him down and bring him in alive. As Deku delivers Twice and he goes to walk away, the man says, oh, don't you want to stick around? As Deku's like, not particularly. I'm not a villain, I'm a mercenary. Whatever you're gonna do, I clearly don't give a fuck. Just wire my money and we're straight. Don't do it, I'll be back. And you won't like it if I have to come back here. And that's when he walks away. And the guy's just like, oh, scary. But that's the mercenary type for you. Straight to business. As he puffs out, a puff of smoke from his cigarette. As he just closes the door and Deku's on his way. As Deku starts getting more and more contracts, he realizes that they're contracts to kill pro heroes. So, Deku does exactly that while he waits for the rest of the 10 months to go by and for the entrance exams to be done until he's called into work. And pretty much Deku's racking up quite a name for DeathStroke, as DeathStroke has already killed over 40 pro heroes in this short amount of time, and especially Aizawa being the most prominent one that he's killed. So, the rest of the 10 months are over, the entrance exams are done, and Deku is called in for his first day at work. As Deku would walk into school, but since most of the heroes just wear their, hero attire as their teaching attire, Deku, not having any of that and not wanting to show up in a DeathStroke costume, decides to just wear some sweatpants, a muscle shirt, and some Adidas as he walks into his class, as people think that he's a student because of his young age. But a lot of people just can't help but looking at his tattoos, which are 2 twin dragons, one on each arm. And basically, Deku's just walking by as he just gets into his own classroom, which is the gym, and waits. As the students eventually come into the gym, and Deku's like, alright, is this everyone? As he looks around the whole class 1A, who is honestly just like missing Deku, but everyone else is still in there. As basically he sees and just immediately checks his board and he's like, Bakugo. As basically Bakugo's like, yeah, the fuck you want? And Deku says, that ain't way to talk to your teacher. And Bakugo's like, what, you're our teacher? There's no way, you can't be any older than I am. As Deku says, I am in fact 20 years old. And Bakugo's just like, so what, I'll turn 20 in a few weeks. As Deku's just like, so what, not my problem. They hired me because of my experience and my abilities. You have neither of those. So shut the fuck up. And pretty much, Bakugo's just like, no way in hell you're telling me to shut the fuck up. I'm not taking orders from somebody my own age. As Deku looks at him and says, have you fought in any wars? Bakugo says, no. And Deku says, how many years have you been training your combat skills? Bakugo's just like, about 4. And Deku says, and how long have you been running that damn mouth? And Bakugo's like, ever since I was born. And Deku says, that's your problem. You run your mouth more than you train your combat skills, and you never fought in any wars. Let me tell you, I've been trained in combat skills since I was 5. 15 years. I've been fighting in wars for the past 5 years. So, you have nothing to teach me. I have everything to teach you. Understand? And pretty much Bakugo shuts up as everyone is honestly on edge as Mina sees Deku and she's just like, oh, I didn't know you'd be my teacher, Izuku. And basically Deku says, oh, Mina, I didn't know you'd be in this class. as he looks at his, roll sheet and he says, "Oh, well, I guess your name was right there." And for those of you who are wondering who Aizawa's replacement is, it's Gang Orca. So Gang Orca would end up walking into the gym and just to inspect Deku as a new teacher, as he would see that he's got very muscular, which Deku's muscular, shape and tone is exactly like DeathStroke's in the picture. So he has a lot of muscle and he is very well defined, as you could tell. And pretty much Deku's just like saying, "So you're Gang Orca, huh?" As Gang Orca says, "Yeah, that's me. I'm here to observe your class for today. Is that alright?" As Deku says, "Yeah, that's fine. I really don't care either way." As Gang Orca would say, "Great. I appreciate this." So, honestly, Deku would just say, "Alright, class. Welcome to Getting Your Asses Kicked 101. I'm not going to be going easy on you. I'm strict, but I am fair. I expect absolute excellence and absolute effort. Giving me any less is seen as an insult to me as your teacher, a waste of my life since you are wasting my time, and time is what life is made of. So, I expect you guys to be trying your absolute hardest. Understand?" And pretty much, like, Gang Orca is hearing this, and he's just like, "Yeah, that's a soldier, alright." As Deku would call out Bakugo, and he would say, "We're gonna have a little bit of a demonstration here. Understand?" As Bakugo says, "Yeah, sure." As Deku says, "Come at me, and don't hold anything back. I don't care if you use your quirk or not." So, Bakugo launches straight at Deku, as Deku, honestly, he just grabs Bakugo's arm and slams him into the ground, just driving his knee into his back and grabbing his neck, almost choking him out, saying, "In this class is what happens when you're too much of an airhead and don't realize your own sloppy habits." And pretty much, like, everyone just realizes, like, he did that way too easily. And Deku knows not to use any DeathStroke moves whatsoever. So he's just using his bare minimum combat skills, which everyone's impressed with, even Gang Orca. And Gang Orca can tell that Deku's hiding something, as pretty much he would wait for Deku to get done with his class, as Deku would constantly just be beating Bakugo every turn, but he'd be studying everyone's movements, their breathing patterns, their aneurysms, everything about them. Even Gang Orca, which Gang Orca knows nothing about, but Deku would study every single aspect of that, of everyone in that room, because in his mind, he needs to be able to take down any one of them or all of them at once if things called for it. So, he would continually analyze and train them, but he wouldn't train them to the point to where they could ever hope to match him. He'd just be giving them some BS training regimens that would accidentally just work out, because he's not really trying to train them to be the best warriors possible. But at the same time, he is starting to think that he should, because it would be a more interesting thrill and contest, and he would know everything that there is about each and every one of them, since it would be impossible to work out any of their kinks or quirks and their fighting styles. So basically, Deku's just chilling. He's ready for, everyone to leave because his class is over for the day, and Gang Orca actually comes up to Deku, as Gang Orca would ask Deku if he's actually an American. And I could be like, what? No, I'm not an American. And Gangork is like, oh, well, you have an accent, so sorry, I just thought you were hiding something. And Deku's like, no, I'm not hiding anything. I've never lied, and I'm being 100% truthful with you. And, of course, Deku's lying, but he doesn't want them knowing that. As Gang Orca would say, I believe you. Anyway, just pardon me. As Deku would say, I did grow up in America for quite a long time. Gotham City, in fact. And Gang Orca would be like, oh, no wonder you know how to fight so well. You had to survive in one of the worst cities in the world. And Deku would be like, yeah, it wasn't all bad though. So, don't believe what everybody tells you on the internet. Or what you see on the news. Gotham's actually a pretty fun place if you're brave enough. And pretty much, like, Deku would call Bakugo, as Bakugo would come over there and Bakugo would say, yeah, what do you want? And Deku's like, do you really not remember me? And Bakugo's like, am I supposed to? And Deku says, yeah, I'm the kid you used to bully, beat on, and we practically grew up as brothers. As Bakugo would realize and would say, Midoriya, is that you? And basically, Deku would say, yeah, it's me. Long time no see, right? And Bakugo would be paralyzed. He'd be like, what happened to you? And Deku would just grab him by the cuff of his collar and just look him dead in the eyes with a menacing evil glare. And he would say, it's all your fault that my life went to hell. My own mother sold me off. That's what happened. I'm not going to expect you to ever understand. But just know, I will always hate you. But you're no longer any concern of mine. As long as you do what you're supposed to in class and respect me, we're not going to have a problem. Do you understand? And pretty much Bakugo would be terrified of Deku now, as he would just say, yes sir, as Deku would just let him go and say, good, now no more talking out of turn in class, right? As Bakugo would just say, yes sir, as he would head out to go get changed. And basically, that's when Deku would head on home, since he only really has like one class each day, and it's different classes each day. So pretty much he had class 1A today, he'll have 1B the next day. But he doesn't have any classes on days that people are scheduled for like heroes versus villains or USJ event. He won't have any classes those days. But pretty much Deku, he heads on home. He's in the shower as he's about to get ready to eat. He gets a phone call, and he notices that it's from his work phone. He answers it, and they say, is this DeathStroke? As he would say, it is. What do you want? And they say that they want a meeting, and they'll pay him half of a fortune to just sit down and meet. As Deku would just say, alright, where and what time? As they would tell Deku that, you know, follow the instructions that are sent. And basically, Deku tells them that he'll be there. So he eats, he gears up in his DeathStroke attire, and he follows the instructions as he heads to an underground bar. As he sits there, as he would see a man with hands all over himself, some type of portal-looking creature as a bartender, and a man with no face. As he would be very confused by this, but All For One would be really interested in DeathStroke, so he would meet him in person. As basically, he would tell him that, he's very interested in his abilities, and he would like for him to do a job. And Deku's like, okay, what's the job? And he says the job is to kill All Might. Pretty simple, right? We already have a plan set up and put into motion, so honestly, it's just whenever you're ready to do it, we'll let you know the day that you need to be ready to do it, but we'll go over the plan if you do choose to accept it. As Deku just says, and if I decide to take the job and do it my own way, and All For One says, naturally, you'd be allowed to, but I kind of want you to follow through on this plan of ours first. And then if you fail, and we fail at that, not only will you receive your pay, but I will hire you again to do the same job, but any way you like. As Deku just says, well, that seems pretty reasonable to me. I accept your offer. So he decides that it's time to kill All Might. And pretty much he would be gearing up, as every day he's at school and he would see All Might, like big All Might, because he doesn't know Small Might, obviously. And he would honestly start putting two and two together with, Big Might and Small Might, as he would deduce that they're the same person. And he figures it'll be way easier to kill Small Might than it will be to kill Big All Might. So he pretty much decides that he's going to make sure that they fail the first attempt, so that way not only will he get paid, but he'll also be able to hunt All Might on his own and at his own discretion. As pretty much he gets set up, because the hero versus villains event happens as Deku's just gearing up more and more. But he does get a message from Mina saying, that she did miss him today, with a winky face. As Deku's just like, well, it might be good to release some stress. So he does call Mina and asks if she would like to come over and have dinner. As she would say, yes, definitely, sure. As Deku would say, great. He sends her his address, and she's getting ready. She's putting on her makeup, dressing out, as she wears, some shorts. She wears a crop top, some high top shoes, and she pretty much just grabs her purse and heads on over to Deku's place, where Deku, he's pretty much just wearing a button-up shirt, some black blue jeans, and some just shoes that are pure black, as he's just waiting for Mina to get there. And pretty much his button-up shirt is orange, so there is that. As Mina gets there, Deku decides that it's time for him to walk on over. As he opens up the door, as she says, oh, this is your place? As Deku says, yes, this is my place. She says, wow, this is so big and fancy. How do you afford this? Deku would just tell her not to worry about it. That it's thanks to his master that he was able to have this place. As basically Mina would say, well, okay. So Deku would be cooking dinner for her, as she would sit down at the table just observing the room, as seeing how luxurious it was, seeing that Deku had all this open space, like even his bed was open, like not anything was kept private. As she would ask Deku if he really just doesn't have like any means for privacy, and Deku says that it's not that I don't have any means to keep my things private, it's just that I have no need to keep them private when I'm usually the only one here. You're the first guest that's ever stepped foot in my house, so I guess you could say that I'm really just a lonely person. As Mina would say, well, you don't have to be. As she would make little subtle advances towards Deku, as Deku would say, you're right, I don't have to be. I choose to be. After all, there's sections of my life that is better left to me and me alone. And that's when Mina would say that she doesn't really care about what happened before she met him. But she's just had this itch that she couldn't quite scratch. And she says, you move very fluidly, but also very familiar to me. As Deku would think back and he would realize what he's been doing in class is what he did when he was saving Mina from those thugs that tried to assault her. As he would just say, oh, and why do you think that? As Mina says, well, considering there was someone who saved me, his voice sounds very similar to yours, he moves very similar to you, so that would lead me to believe that you are him, which means I know you've killed before. Isn't that right, DeathStroke? As Deku would immediately grab her by the face and tell her, look, I have no idea what you're talking about, but if you start throwing wild accusations that I'm some murderous monster, I will not hesitate to throw you out of this house. Understood? As Mina says, I know you're DeathStroke, and all you're doing right now is trying to keep me quiet about it. But you don't have to worry, I'm not going to tell anyone. After all, I don't think you're all that bad. And Deku would let her go, as he would say, you have no idea how evil I can be. I'm a monster. I'm nothing righteous. After all, I'm not here out of the goodness of my heart. It's whatever pays. And she would say, so what, you're like a mercenary? As Deku would say, exactly. I'm no vigilante, I'm no hero, I'm no villain. I'm just a mercenary, and all I'm after is a paycheck. I got no room in my life for any other attachments. As Mina says, well, you could. After all, I'm pretty sure you have a contract to off someone at UA, right? And Deku's like, what makes you think that? She says, why else would you be at UA? And Deku would say, gathering information. That's what. And Mina would ask, what type of information is he trying to gather? As basically Deku would tell her that the only information he's interested in gathering is combat data. In case he has to take out everyone at UA, he needs to know how they move, and how they work, and how they operate. As that is when Mina says, well, don't you need somebody to help you with that? After all, you can only see what they do at certain times. You're not looking at them all the time. So how can you know at the rate at which they're growing? And Deku would think about this for a minute, and he says, what, you want to be my sidekick or something? And Mina says, no, nothing so trivial. I want to be your partner. I want to be your woman, the one and only in your life. As Deku says, I don't even know you that well. Why do you want this for me? As she would say, because you saved me. When you were killing those guys, it sent something through me. Call it adrenaline, call it shock, call it whatever you want. but it really resonates with me. And for some reason, I just can't stop thinking about you. As Deku would say, well, that's not my problem. And she says, oh, but it is, because you saved me. That makes me your problem. As Mina would make subtle, more... okay, I'll cut that part out. As Mina would make more aggressive advances at Deku. As she would start to really try to push herself onto him. As Deku would say, look, if you go this way, there's no way you're coming out of this unscathed. I'm not going to be responsible for what happens to you. And Mina says, oh, but I think you are. As Deku would say, what do you mean? You think I am? As basically Mina says, you're going to look after me and you're going to make sure I'm alright, because if you don't, I'll tell everyone your little secret. And that's when Deku would say, and I'll go ahead and execute you on the spot. Not working out too well, is it? And basically she says, no, not really. As Deku would just say that you're way out of your league here. So don't even act like you can even compare to me. Understand? As she would say, sure, I'm not gonna act like I can compare, but I can be pretty good at what I can do. After all, they trust me. They think of me as their friend. I can get in close, exploit it. Just give me a chance. So, Deku would say, very well, but you're going to get special training from me from this day forward. If you're going to be my partner, I need you trained, and well at that. So, Mina says, okay, but I have a condition of my own. And Deku's like, what? And Mina says, I want to live here with you. And Deku says, fine. That's a good enough trade-off, so I guess we'll live together. So Mina celebrates. Deku finishes up his cooking. The two eat. And Mina says, what, I'm staying here tonight. As Deku's like, suit yourself. So Deku just starts like undressing as Mina's like, oh, we're getting straight to the fun. And Deku says, I'm taking a shower. Don't come in. And pretty much like Deku walks into the shower as Mina just sits there and she decides to kind of snoop around a little bit as she starts trying to look for his costume, but she can't find it at all. And she's just like, the hell? Where does he keep his gear? And pretty much Deku, the hot water that's hitting him, it just starts to remind him of something, a mission he was on. As he touches his eye and realizes, yeah, it's been a long time. And for those of you who don't know, like, Deku doesn't have both his eyes. He has lost an eye. It was on a mission, which is the mission I'm about to go into. So Deku touches his eye and says, well, I guess it's that time of year where old wounds start to hurt. So Deku is looking back. It was his first mission ever. He was stationed in Taiwan, and he started moving around trying to find the, regime leader that was leading it at the time. As he would move in, killing all the guards that got in his way. But as soon as he got close, he ran into a complication. He ran into another person called the Jackal. As the Jackal would easily defeat Deku then and there. As Deku would be beaten and captured. As he would prepare for death, but the Jackal wanted information. So he started torturing Deku more and more, and he knew that Deku's regeneration was stronger than Slade's, so he decided to do something. He took a flare, as he sparked the flare as the men held Deku down, opened up his left eye, and put the flare right there onto his eye, burning it. As Deku's body would try to regenerate the eye, he would keep burning it every time it tried to regenerate, causing permanent damage to Deku. Which means Deku can no longer see out of his eye as it is burned, and he just keeps it covered with an eye patch. As Deku's face starts to hurt more and more, he decides it's time to get out of the shower. As he would get out and see Mina on the bed, naked, as he would just be like, oh, what the hell? As Mina says, like I said, we're gonna have some fun tonight. As Deku would just say, fine, by all means. I could use a little bit of stress relief. So Deku would start to make the advances back towards Mina, as she would welcome them, as she would, flip Deku back onto his back, as she would be on top of Deku, as she would start kissing him, as Deku would kiss her back passionately. The two would go down and start moving their hands across each other's body, as Mina would feel every scar that Deku had. As she would go to remove the eye patch, Deku would grab her hand and say, that stays on. As Mina says, it's okay, I won't judge. As Deku says, it stays on. So she leaves it on. And pretty much Deku starts, being more aggressive and dominant with Mina. It would be very rough, as Mina would be screaming from the top of her lungs in ecstasy and pleasure, as Deku would be on his way to finish, as Mina is already pretty much done for the day. Her eyes are rolled back like she can't keep going, as Deku just has flashbacks more and more to that mission, the Jackal, as Deku just keeps going, and it gets rougher and rougher as each vision starts passing through his head, as Deku just grabs her hips and pulls her so close as he finishes, as basically he just remembers the ending of that mission. Slade had to come and save him, and we barely made it out of there with our lives, Deku thinks to himself. And he tells himself, if he ever comes across Jackal again, he will die, free of charge. As he just grabs his eye, as he lays back down onto the bed, as Mina cuddles up to Deku, as he just lets her. He's too tired to care anymore at this point. As pretty much Mina starts to sleep, as Deku, he attempts to, but the Jackal keeps plaguing his mind. As pretty much Deku just decides it's time to get up. It's 5 in the morning. He decides it's time to hit the gym, as he brings out all his gym equipment that he keeps in his penthouse, because once again, he likes to be comfortable. As he starts working out, as Mina's still asleep, even though she has school in a few hours, but Deku decides to let her sleep. For today and today only. After all, he was kind of rough with her. As Mina can feel Deku's not in the bed, so she wakes up and just sees him working out, as he was going through combat scenario after combat scenario, lifting weights, and then he pulls out the staff, as he starts training with the staff. But the staff is a bit different. It has a kind of golden look to it, as basically Deku starts doing move after move, as he's just thinking about that mission and having to fight Jackal again, He's image training himself, being more ferocious, more vicious, ruthless, almost as if he's out to kill somebody that's invisible. And Mina's watching this, as she's watching every step he takes, how he takes it, as he tries to position himself, how he shifts his center of gravity to and from, the agility, the speed, and the ferocity of his attacks. Mina's watching it all, taking it all in. And that's when Deku decides, like, that's enough training for today. As he's in a sweat, as he walks to the shower, and Mina joins him this time. As she would kiss Deku on the cheek and say, "Good morning, darling." As Deku would say, "I'm not your darling." As pretty much she says, "Well, after last night, I thought," and Deku says, "You thought wrong. Like I said, it was to relieve some stress." As she's like, "One day, though. I know you'll catch feelings for me one day." As Deku says, "Don't count on it. I don't have any feelings left. Not after what happened to me. No, never after what happened to me." As basically he would shower, as his hands would be against the shower wall, as his head would drip down, as the water would rush along his body. Mina would be, right there trying to console him in a way, but Deku would just say that if she's done, she can leave. After all, she does have school in a few hours. Mina would check the time, as it would be 7:30, as she's like, "I still got time," and Deku's like, "You have a train to catch, remember?" As Mina's like, "Oh, that's right, we live a bit away from school now." And Deku's like, "Yes, I do." And Mina says, "We do, remember?" And Deku's like, "I remember. But just don't forget whose house this is. Understand?" As she says, "Absolutely." So Mina gets dressed and heads down, as Deku's just trying to gather his thoughts, as he would say that he doesn't have school today, so he can honestly do some work as DeathStroke, recon, analysis over the UA systems, everything. As he would call Mina and say that she better be keeping up her end of the bargain. He wants to know their rate of growth and their new moves, if they show off any. As Mina would say, "Absolutely." So Mina now has an earphone that is just hid directly in her ear, and it connects directly to Deku. As pretty much Deku's just chilling, as he's going over all of the school building plans, all of their structures, their structural weaknesses, everything. And that's when he gets a call from somebody. As he would look and wonder who could try to be calling him at this time. As he answers it, and he hears a younger man's voice, as he would say, "Is this DeathStroke? I have a job for you." As Deku would say, "This is DeathStroke. What's the job?" As he would say that he requires him to fetch a young girl. She's run off from home and needs to be brought back in one piece and without injury. They can pay him very handsomely. As Deku would say, "What's the girl's name?" As the voice would tell him, "That's on a need-to-know basis. All you need to know is that she's very young, has white hair, and a horn on her head." As Deku would say, "That's very descriptive of you. If this seems to be legit, then you better pay me well." As Deku suits up into DeathStroke, as he would go on the hunt for this little girl, as he would move from neighborhood to neighborhood. And that's when he would see not the little girl, but a grown woman with long green hair, walking with somebody in a pure white suit with green and yellow hair and some glasses on. He would be very skinny. As he would look, as he would see that that's his mother, and she has a wedding ring on. And they would see that basically Inko remarried and has a new husband now. And Deku says, "Oh, you think you can have a happy life after what you did to me? No, I'll make sure your life's a living hell." And pretty much he sees a new child there with them. A teenager, no older than about 16 years of age. It's a girl who has green and blonde hair, as she would also be wearing glasses, but obviously have freckles as on her face, as she would be very happy. And this would make Deku extremely angry, seeing as how his mother is now living a happy life with a family, something that he's not being able to be a part of anymore. As he would say, this is not going to happen. And pretty much he says, but the job comes first. So pretty much he would put a tracer on Inko. He would shoot it across, and she would just feel like it was an insect bite, but when she reached back there, there would be nothing there. So the tracker is on Inko's body, but she just can't feel it. As pretty much Deku would start to move to try and find that girl. He would go into an alleyway and see a little girl covered in bandages with white hair and a horn on her forehead. He would jump down and say, "Hello, child," as she would look up and be terrified of DeathStroke, as Deku would say, "The name's DeathStroke. I've been sent here to take you back home. Why did you run away?" Pretty much, the little girl would say that she can't take the experiments anymore. Deku would say, "Experiments? What experiments?" As pretty much he would take off his mask and kneel down right there in front of her. As she would look at him and say, "Are you okay?" As she would see the eye patch on Deku, as Deku would just say, "It's nothing." As pretty much she would say, "I can try to fix it," as Deku says, "How can you do that?" As the little girl would say that that's the reason her body's being experimented on time and time again. It's that she has the ability to rewind a person's time. As basically Deku's like, "Wait a minute, you can restore the body to its previous state, but it wouldn't affect their lifespan?" And basically she says, "I don't think so." As Deku would say, "What type of experiments are they doing on you?" And pretty much Eri would tell them everything, like that she was being, kind of destroyed and then reassembled by Chisaki, made into a bullet and then reformed back into a person over and over and over again. As Deku would be pissed and he would call him back, as Chisaki would answer the phone, as he would say, "This is Chisaki," and he would say, "DeathStroke, I'm canceling the job. You think I wouldn't find out what you were actually doing to this girl? Sorry, but you're a dead man." As pretty much she would just be looking so confused at Deku, but notice the anger in his eyes. As she would ask him, what's going on? And Deku would say, "I canceled the job to take you back. You're coming with me." As pretty much Eri would say, "Where are we going?" And Deku says, "I'm taking you to my home." you're going to be safe there. I promise. As basically, Deku would put his mask back on, take Eri in his arms, and would go. As he would disappear from that place very quickly, taking Eri back to his apartment. Where that's when she would finally tell him her name is Eri. As he would say that he's going to submit some paperwork to make her his official daughter. As Deku would say, never thought I'd be a father so young, but hey, I have to do what I have to do. As he would start filling out the paperwork and submit it to a contact he has deep inside of the Japanese government, which would push the paperwork by unnoticed, and would have Eri be registered as Eri Midoriya, as officially the father would be recognized as Izuku Midoriya. And he has a nice little surprise for Mina, because since that's the only woman that he's romantically involved in, he forced them to put Mina Ashido as the mother. And Deku says if she doesn't run off after this, I don't know what's going to happen. So he starts just staying there for the rest of the day as he's taking care of Eri time and time again, as he's making sure she's comfortable. He goes out and buys her some actual clothes. And just when he gets back home, that's when the movers are there with the rest of his stuff that he inherited from DeathStroke. As he would look through it and see that everything's all there, so he would pay them generously for it, and would tell them to keep this hush-hush and under the radar. As they would do so for an extra couple $1,000, as Deku would pay it, knowing that secrecy is sometimes best bought instead of forced. So he would pay them what they asked, as they would head on home and notice that it would be like a huge amount of payday for them both, because they now can quit their jobs and focus on stuff that they actually wanted to do. So Deku, he's feeling pretty good. He gets Eri something to eat, puts on cartoons, he lets her be a kid, because he's not going to force her to be his successor, because in his mind, he doesn't need one. Not yet. As he waits with Eri as Eri kind of goes to sleep on the bed, Mina gets home, as she would say, school was a killer today. I ended up losing in that heroes versus villains thing, but I got you the information. She would say, why is there a kid in here? And Deku would just say, what? That's my daughter. And she would say, daughter? Who did you screw before me to have a daughter? Let alone one at this age. How young were you? As Deku just says, not biological. I rescued this kid today and adopted her. You're her mother. As pretty much Mina would be like, what? As Deku would show her the legal documents saying that Mina Ashido was seen as Eri's biological mother. As pretty much she would just be like, this is some kind of sick game, right? As Deku says, you want to live here? Help me take care of the kid. And pretty much Mina would just see how cute and adorable Eri is, and would just say, of course, I'll take care of this little beauty. As Mina would get in the bed and start holding Eri, she would freak out and would run away from Mina and hiding behind Deku, as Deku would say, that's okay. That's going to be your new mama. And Eri's like, are you sure? And Deku says, she won't hurt you. I won't let her. As Eri would say, okay. As she would go over there and just sit by Mina, as Mina would try to take it slow with Eri, really readjusting her, as Eri says, what kind of trauma did you go through? As Deku would say, I'll tell you later, don't make her repeat that. And Mina would say, very well. As pretty much Deku would let Eri take a bath, and he would be talking to Mina, as pretty much he would tell her that they're gonna have to get some more stuff set up in here for her so she can have an enjoyable childhood, and that they can't risk her going to public schools. And pretty much they would be like, so what are we gonna do then? And that's when Deku's thinking, and he's like, I don't know, how are we gonna handle this? And Mina says, well, if it's needed for her to be kept under the radar, wouldn't one of our parents work best to look after her while we're away? Deku says, I don't have any family left. And pretty much Mina would say, well then my parents would be the best guess, right? As he says, are you sure your parents are going to take too kindly to you just having a daughter all of a sudden when you're not even married or in a relationship? As Mina says, you're the father, I'm the mother. We're in a relationship. It's that simple. As soon as you said I was the mother, you became my boyfriend. Simple as that, and there's no breaking up with me, because I'll take custody of Eri. And pretty much Deku just says, fine. This is for the kid, not for you. As pretty much, like, and the whole reason why Eri ran away a lot earlier in this is because, like, I just feel like Eri would have ran away time and time again with Chisaki and nobody really just noticed because of how under the radar Chisaki's organization was at that time. And without Eri there, Overall's never able to complete the quirk destroying bullets. So he doesn't have those in his bag anymore. So pretty much, you know, Deku says that he has a contract coming up in 2 days. He has to be there. As pretty much Mina says, oh, the USJ Day. As she starts putting 2 and 2 together, she's like, you're going to attack the USJ? And Deku says, I don't really have a choice, now do I? But don't worry, I won't let any harm come to you. But to be safe, you're staying here with Eri. I'm going. As basically Mina says, what, why? Why do I have to stay here? And he says, one of us has to be here for the kid. I can't risk dragging your parents into this. And besides, my place is the most secure place for you guys to be at. I have several security options. As he would show Mina all the weapons that came in today. The guns, grenades, landmines, trigger mines, like the traps, everything. As he would even show her that there's flashbangs, everything. As she would see a female costume, as Deku would say, oh, that was Ravenger's. As Mina says, it kind of looks cool. As Deku says, well, she's dead, so it's not like she's going to need it anymore. As she would say, so it's fair for me to use? And Deku's like, what? No. That was Slade's daughter. My master's daughter. As she's like, so you're saying I haven't earned it, or you don't want me wearing it at all? And Deku's like, you haven't earned it yet. So keep your hands off. Until I say so. Pretty much, Mina would say fine. As Deku and Mina would be there with Eri day in and day out, she would be very accustomed to having Mina and Deku around. But she would also know that Deku's a busy man, as Deku says that he saves a lot of children. As she would be very happy to hear that, as Deku would make another donation to all of the charities, since he did just kind of take money from Overhaul, as he distributed it through all the charities around the world. But at that time, basically, the League of Villains is starting to grow restless with no communication from DeathStroke. They want to know what he's doing and where is he. As the day of the job comes on, Deku gears up in his DeathStroke outfit and leaves a lot earlier. He leaves at 3 in the morning and is at the League of Villains bar. As he walks in, basically Shigaraki says, you're finally here. What took you so long? And why did you cut all contact? As Deku says, I had other jobs to do. I am a mercenary, after all. Not a villain, not a hero. You pay me, I do the job. And pretty much Shigaraki says, "So you have no loyalty?" And Deku says, "I'm a merc. What do you think? My loyalty is to the biggest paycheck." As pretty much All For One would say, "It's alright. He's fine. After all, he is right. He has to be loyal to whoever can give him the biggest amount of money. Which for this job, if you successfully kill All Might in here, I will double your pay." And Deku thinks that, this is going to get him a lot of notoriety. And this is going to really bring him out into the spotlight. Can he risk that? As Deku would tell him, "Look, I have people important to me. I don't want to be out in that spotlight too much. So, how about this? I weaken All Might, and you guys kill him. You keep my pay rate the same. No need to double it." And pretty much All For One would be like, why don't you want to be in the spotlight? Have a lover? A child? A family? As Deku would say, "Keep pushing, you're gonna find out just how much a bullet to the brain can hurt, old man." As pretty much, All For One would just be smiling and pulling his cheeks up, kind of like he did with All Might. He's like, take it easy. No need to be hostile. I'll accept your proposition." As Deku would say, "Good." And he looks at Shigaraki and says, "You're gonna be the one to kill him. After all, you're wanting to be in the spotlight, right?" As basically Shigaraki would be like, "Yes, I do." And Deku's just like, "Good. After all, I don't care too much for this." As pretty much Deku would say, "So, when are we leaving?" And they say they'll leave at noon. And pretty much they already have stationed a bunch of guys over there. But Deku will be arriving with them. As Deku's like, "Fine." So pretty much Deku just decides that he'll chill, have a few drinks. His healing factor won't allow him to get drunk anyway. So he's drinking, as pretty much he just says to take it out of his pay. As Kurogiri says, "Rest assured I will." As pretty much Deku's drinking the high dollar stuff because it's the only thing that'll give him even kind of a buzz. But the time finally comes for them to do their business. Deku pulls his mask back all the way down, which he never took it fully off. All they know is his mouth part, so he can have a drink. As he would be ready. As they would get to the USJ, as Deku would see all of these heroes, as he would say, "Where the fuck is All Might?" And pretty much they'd be like, "We don't know. All Might's supposed to be here." As Deku's like, "You guys fucked up your own plan? What the hell? Gosh damn it, this is why I do things my way." As pretty much he would see Gang Orca up there, he's like, "Oh fuck, not this guy." As Gang Orca would be moving in, as he would try to be calling for backup, and Deku's like, "Please tell me you have the signals jammed in here." As they would say, "Yeah, they got that covered." As Deku would just be like, "So, I was paid to kill All Might, not any of these guys, so I'm not lifting a finger until All Might gets here." And, like, what if All Might doesn't come? And Deku's like, "Then make him come. Otherwise, you can send me back." As pretty much, they're just like, "Fine." As Deku says, "Oh, by the way, don't kill the students." And they're just like, "What? Why?" As Deku says, "The students are innocent in this. You hired me, you work with my moral code. Understand?" As pretty much they would say, "No, we're villains. We do this our way." As Deku would grab Shigaraki and say, "Listen here, asshole." As he would prevent Shigaraki from touching him, saying, "I know all about your quirk. I know that if you touch something, it decays. Not happening to me. I got too many important shits going on for some piece of shit backwater wannabe to end up getting me killed on this mission. Either you provide All Might, or you tell your fucking Warp Gate buddy here to send me the fuck back. As pretty much they would just say, fine. As pretty much Shigaraki would just say, then why don't you flush him out yourself, Mr. Mercenary? As Gang Orca would see the conflict between those two and would start rushing in, taking out villain after villain more easily than Aizawa could have ever done. As he would get over there, as the Nomu would start rushing towards Gang Orca. As Gang Orca would do his best, but Nomu would eventually crush Gang Orca down. As pretty much it was designed to fight All Might, so yeah, not a whole lot Gang Orca can do there. As Deku just says, oh, to hell with it. As he's looking for the guy that's jamming the communications to cut him out of the equation. As he sees Kaminari being held captive, so, what's he do? He shoots the guy holding Kaminari, right in the forehead, killing him. As they look and see DeathStroke, as pretty much he's unknown, but they're like, what the hell, did you just take out one of your own comrades? As Deku says, I need him to quit jamming the signal. After all, my target isn't here, so I'm not about to let you guys die. As they say, what? As Deku starts killing all the other villains around them, saying that if you guys aren't going to follow my code, then I'm going to make sure you regret ever hiring me. As he starts slaying them all one by one, as then all that's left is really Nomu. As Deku jumps over Nomu and slams a fucking landmine right onto his face, as it would blow up immediately as the button got pushed. As pretty much Nomu would just be falling backwards a bit, but it wouldn't be enough to kill him. He would just regenerate, and Deku's like, son of a bitch. He puts his swords up and he takes out the staff, as he's just like, alright, guess we're doing this the hard way. As Nomu would try his best to hit Deku, but Deku would just start hitting Nomu with the staff and realize that this staff's doing more damage than an explosion. This shouldn't be happening. As pretty much the Nomu goes to hit Deku and he blocks it with the staff, and then when he hits Nomu again, he realizes that that attack did way more damage than anything else. As he could feel like his instincts are being pulled, as he's being directed to where to attack Nomu, when to attack, when to block. He feels like the staff is taking control of him. As that's when Deku's just like, shit, wish I could cut this fucker. And that's when the staff, changes its shape into two blades. As Deku's like, holy shit. Slade gave me the God Killers? As he would just grin and say, oh, you guys are fucked now. As pretty much he would start slaying Nomu, as basically it would negate all of Nomu's abilities, because if you don't know about the God Killer blades, they can adapt to any opponent, and any type of force you exert, it is absorbed by the edges of the blade and doubled right back at you. So they're pretty overpowered, considering they can adapt to even Superman's powers. And nobody in the My Hero verse is anywhere close to Superman's strength. As Deku would immediately end up killing the Nomu, as pretty much Shigaraki is saying Nomu's dead, and that's when All Might would appear. As pretty much All Might would lunge straight towards Deku, as he's just like, hold up now. All Might would stop, and Deku's like, I just saved all these kids' asses, and you're really going to attack me? As pretty much Gang Orca would say that he did help save them, as All Might would be like, what's your play, villain? As Deku's like, I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm not a villain, I'm not a hero, I'm a mercenary. Anyone who hires me to do a job and pays me the most will end up getting my services, but I do have a code, and there are some lines I am not willing to cross. As pretty much Deku insinuates that If you want, I could take care of these guys for you. But there is the small matter of my fee. As All Might's like, what do you mean? As Deku would rattle off the number that they're paying him, as Gang Orca would say, I'll double it if you help us survive this. Deku's like, there's the man who's willing to take actions into his own hands. Very well, I'll help you. Just wire it to this account number. As he would throw his phone to Gang Orca and ask him to get ready to wire the money. As he would rush at Kurogiri. And using the God Killer blades, he would end up actually killing Kurogiri, so Shigaraki couldn't escape. As basically All Might says, wait a minute, don't kill that one. As pretty much Deku's like, fine. As he would put the God Killers back to their bow staff form and just slam it into Shigaraki's face, knocking him out. And yes, the God Killers can change their form between like the double blades and a bow staff, so that's what I'm gonna have them do throughout the rest of the story. As pretty much Shigaraki would be unconscious, the police would come into a butchery shop, as Deku would see that his money's been wired from Gang Orca's account to his, as he would then change his account information right then and there, scramble it, so the money couldn't be taken back. And he would say, well, I guess I'll be out of here, as he drops smoke bombs and disappears. As pretty much they're just like, what is this guy, a ninja? And basically Gang Orca would say, from the look of his outfit, I'd say yes. And that is basically when Deku just returns back to his apartment. As he looks around and sees that, Mina and Eri aren't there. He's panicking now at this point. There was no signs of forced entry anywhere, as he calls Mina, as Mina answers the phone on the first ring saying, yeah, what's up? As Deku would say, where the fuck are you guys at? And where is my daughter? As she would say, chill, I'm visiting with my parents, and I took our daughter to see her grandparents. As pretty much Mina is watching Eri play with her mother and her father, as Eri has this huge smile and is laughing, and Deku can hear it in the background. He says, alright, fine. And she says, oh, by the way, they're very interested to meet my husband and baby daddy. And basically, Deku's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, do I have to? And she's like, Eri misses her papa. As pretty much Deku's just like, fine, I'll be right there. So Deku gets out of his DeathStroke outfit and changes into his basically just a muscle shirt, some shorts, and some high tops, as he goes down there after, taking a shower, of course, and getting all the blood off of him. As he just heads down, as someone is watching him from the rooftops. Someone in a black and red outfit. Someone with 2 eskrima sticks and long black hair. And pretty much Deku goes and sees Eri as she runs over there saying, Papa, Papa, as Deku just picks her up and says, how's my little girl? As he hugs Eri so tightly, he says, yeah, Papa got done with work early. As pretty much it's on the news now of a masked assailant basically helping the heroes wipe out villains, which means UA wouldn't really come underneath that much scrutiny, but Gang Orca would be questioned as to why he hired a mercenary, as Gang Orca would say that it was out of necessity and to ensure the children's lives. So Gang Orca would be recognized as having great judgment and would be severely, just praised for his quick thinking, as basically All Might would be ridiculed for getting there too late and not doing anything to help. As All Might would actually kind of just say that it's his fault. He had a moment of just pause from seeing all of the casualties of villains on the ground. It disturbed him. He's not used to seeing a war zone at his school. as pretty much the media could understand where All Might's coming from, as they would cut him some slack. But basically, Deku just decides to turn off the news and says, don't worry about that, kiddo. It's bad for your brain. All it is just politics and, FaceTime. That's all it is. Don't worry about it. As pretty much Harry would just say, sure thing, as she would be smiling and hugging Deku. Because Harry would actually be a lot happier now that, Deku and Mina are there for her, as she was rescued way earlier. So it's actually a good thing that, Deku didn't complete the job with Eri. As basically Deku would meet Mina's parents, as they would ask him what he does for a living, as Deku says that he's the combat instructor at UA and that he's also an ex-soldier that fought in a lot of wars, as they would see Deku as someone honorable, as they would be very happy that Mina ended up with someone like Deku. But he's not about the whole say that he's a whole mercenary. Like, that's just not happening. As Deku would stay there, he would have dinner with them, but as soon as he would get back up there, he would have his window just shattered, as there would be a man right there saying, "So, I found the new DeathStroke. Who knew it was someone around my own age?" As he would look at Deku, as Deku would be like, "Who the hell is this guy?" As he would tell, basically, Mina to take Eri and run. As, the kid would say, "Sorry, not happening." As he would throw an scrim stick straight at Mina, but Deku would catch it, as he would say, "Sorry, but you're not hurting them. Your fight's with me." As Deku would rush at him, grabbing the bow staff, as basically the assailant would fight him. As he would come into light, Deku would say, "Nightwing, what are you doing in Japan?" As he kept fighting against Nightwing, as basically Nightwing would just say, "Batman sent me to find out who the new Deathstroke is. Didn't know you had a penchant for killing your own employers." As basically Deku would just say, "That's none of your goddamn business, so why don't you butt the fuck out, Bat Brat?" As he would slam the staff into the legs of Nightwing, taking them right out from underneath of him. As Nightwing would throw the eskrima stick and throw a few wingdings at him, Deku would dodge them, but barely, as one of them would cut the eye patch that Deku was having and scar his face a bit. As Deku would just say, "That was a bad move, kid." As basically he would go even harder at fighting against Nightwing, as Nightwing would become overwhelmed more and more, as Deku would grab his mask, ripping it off of his face, as he would then punch Nightwing into the ground, constantly just unleashing a barrage until there was a small crater in the ground where Nightwing was, and Nightwing was bloody and unconscious. As Mina would come out from behind the door, seeing that the fight is over, she would walk up to Deku saying, "Who is this?" As Deku would say, "An American hero, Nightwing." As she would say, "What's he doing here?" And Deku says, "I don't know, but I'm going to find out, whether he likes it or not." As that is when Eri would just be crying uncontrollably, and her quirk would activate, as she would touch Deku, as Deku's body would start rewinding itself. The scar would erase itself, and Deku's eye would actually come back, as Eri would go uncontrolled, as Deku was experiencing a lot of pain. So he's just lucky that he has super heightened regeneration that's constantly regenerating himself. Otherwise he would die, as basically just says, "Sorry, kiddo," as he knocks out Eri and her quirk deactivates. As he says, as Mina would look at him and notice that his eye is back, as she would see his emerald eyes and would say, "They're beautiful." As Deku would say, "Do I look like a woman to you?" And she's like, "No, but I do like your eyes." As Deku's just like, "Yeah, well, don't get used to it. I'm pretty sure it's only temporary." But the more he would actually hack into Chisaki's database, because I'm gonna say Chisaki has a database where he kept all the information about Eri, he would realize it's permanent. He's like, huh, well maybe you can get used to it. Gosh, I've been so one-sided, had depth perception from hell, but now it's gonna take a while to get used to it again. As pretty much he would start training profusely to get used to this, as he would keep Nightwing chained up somewhere, as he is not going to even risk letting Nightwing get loose. As he would be done with his training, as he would get his perception back, as he would gear up and actually add a new mask, one that has an eye slot on both sides, as he would walk down there to where Nightwing is being kept, as he would look through his file saying, Damian Wayne. Well, who knew you were Nightwing? All of Slade's notes said that it was Dick Grayson, which leads me to believe Dick Grayson is Batman. As pretty much Damian would be saying, you're gonna pay for what you've done, as Deku says, what I've done? What did you do? You came to my house, attacked me in front of my family. You are going to pay. As pretty much Deku would look at Damian and just be extremely angry, as he would beat Damian in the face until Damian shut up, as he would say, you know what? If you want to impress your master so badly, I have the perfect way for you to do it. As he would tear the symbol from Damian's costume off, as he would put it in a box, as he would say, hold out your hand, as he would move the restraints further back on Damian's forearm, as he would take his sword and slice Damian's hand off. As Damian would scream in pain as the blood would start pouring from his arm, Deku would put his hand in a box, as he would say, oh, don't worry, we're about to have some fun. As he would take a blowtorch and cauterize the wound on Damian, closing it up. As basically Damian would be absolutely just angered and in pain. He would scream at Deku, as Deku would be dousing a rag in gasoline, as he would stuff it in Damian's mouth. And Damian couldn't move, and now that he lost a hand, he's really not going anywhere. As Deku just says, I'm pretty sure your master will come. And don't worry, I'll leave your body here for him to find. Although, all he'll see is a charred corpse. As Damian's like, oh, as basically Deku's just like, I have no idea what you're saying, but don't worry, it'll only hurt a lot. As he ignites the gasoline rag that's stuffed in Damian's mouth, as basically it starts burning him. Inside of his mouth is set on fire as the fire spreads all throughout him, as he's screaming out in pain as Deku leaves and shuts the door to the soundproof room. As he has a smile on his face saying, one bat brat down. Now I just gotta kill the Batman. As he walks off. As pretty much Deku is just going back home, as him and Mina get the place renovated, as set up more for a child's home, as basically it's taken a few weeks. So while Mina attends school and Deku's working, Mina's parents are watching Eri. She's having a lot of fun with them. And All For One hasn't forgotten what Deku did and betrayed him. So he's collecting information on Deku, as he's going to make him sorry that he ever betrayed him. As pretty much Mina starts to feel a bit of morning sickness when she gets to school. She starts puking in the bathroom, and that's when Asui would run up and ask her if she's okay, as Mina would say that she thinks she's pregnant. As Asui's just like, what? Who could have gotten you pregnant? Mina just looks and says, "It's my little secret." As she just says, "Mina, you've been acting strangely. Like, are you involved in a bad relationship?" As Mina says, "No, I love him deeply." As basically, like, Asu would be like, "Come on, like, you can tell me. I won't blabber out your secret. I'll keep it safe." As Mina says, it's Izuku, their, combat instructor. He's the one who's the father and who is her boyfriend. As basically Asui would be very shocked to hear that, as she's just like, "Wait a minute, you know, Mr. Midoriya got you pregnant?" As she says, "Yeah, it's not so bad, we're both the same age. Only difference is that I'm a student and he's the teacher." As basically Deku would be waiting, as he would just see that all the other class members are there except for Mina and Asui. As Mina gets sent to the nurse's office, as Asui would run back in there and tell Deku what happened, as Deku would escort Mina to the nurse's office. As on the way there, Mina would just say that, she's sorry, but she didn't take a test. She kind of had to find out this way. As Deku's just like, "Gosh damn it, I should have used protection." As Mina just says, "It's okay, and now Eri will have a little sibling." As Deku's just like, "You really don't see the bad side to anything, do you?" As she's like, "No, you're wealthy enough to, raise a kid. You can quit being Deathstroke." And Deku says, "That's the one thing I can't do. Deathstroke's the only life I know." As basically Mina says, "It's not the only life you have to know." As she says, "Izuku, you can give it up." And Deku says, "I can't. Not until I finish the business that I have to finish." As she would say, "What's that?" As he says, "Batman's gonna come for him. He has to be ready. And he can't allow her or Eri to be drug up in his fight with the Bat. And then there's All For One that he has to worry about." And pretty much, basically, he has nobody else he can turn to for help in this. So he's gonna have to try and make a connection somewhere. As Deku's just so worried now. He's completely messed up his original goal, but he still has to protect them because he does care for them. He has learned to love Mina and the time that they spent together with Eri as their daughter, because by this time, months have gone by since the USJ. Like, it's almost a sports festival. So, like, literally months have gone by, and Deku does actually care for his little pseudo family thing that he's got going on. And like, him and Mina have done it like several times after that. So Mina is pretty much like expecting to be told that she can't participate in the sports festival since she's pregnant. And they finally get to the nurse's office, as the nurse says, "Yep, she's not going to be able to attend the hero course stuff for anymore. Like, she would be out for the rest of the year. So they're sorry, but she's going to have to leave UA since she can't compete anymore." As basically Mina just says that's fine. She was thinking about leaving anyway. As Deku says that, "Don't worry, like, it'll be alright." As basically Recovery Girl would notice that they're too close to just be a teacher and student. So she puts two and two together and says, "Oh, you're the father." As Deku's just like, "Yeah, I'm the father." And basically, like, she would just say, like, having relations with students isn't that professional." As Deku says, "We didn't have relations at school. It's started outside of that." As she's just like, "Oh, I see. Well, I wish you two the best of luck with this newborn child." And Deku says, "It's not our first child. We're pretty well prepared. As she would say, "Oh, I see." As she would say, "How old are y'all again?" And Deku would say 20, as Mina would say 20 as well. And basically, they would just look at each other and realize, like, they've got a lot of planning to do. As Deku would take Mina home, as basically he would be allowed to leave for a set amount of time, having Gang Orca step in and have them do drills, as he would get her home to her parents' house, not his place, but to the parents' house where Eri is at, as Eri would run up there, as, Mina would just say, "Hi, little girl," as Eri would just be smiling, and Deku would say he has to go back to work. Mina's mom would be there since her dad would be at work, as she would take care of Mina, as basically Deku goes back to school and he gets there in time to teach the rest of his class, so he's watching everybody as Bakugo's still acting high and mighty, and he requests another fight with Deku, as Deku says, by all means. And Asui's actually watching Deku very closely, and so is everybody else, because they kind of have a feeling that Deku's not being completely honest with them. As Deku just straight out fights Bakugo, as Bakugo is trying his best, but Deku's just dodging, doing backflips. He's trying to pull off some of Nightwing's moves, which he can do to a majority of ease, as he does basically a triple somersault spin kick around to Bakugo's head, knocking him out. As people would say, "Wait a minute, isn't that a Nightwing move?" As they would be like, "Wait a minute, are you Nightwing?" As Deku would just say, "What? No, I'm a soldier. I just copied some of Nightwing's moves, that's all. They're very practical to use. So you guys might want to start implementing some of his moves to your own repertoire." As everyone would just drop the whole concerned look, as basically Kaminari would say, "You sound pretty familiar to someone that saved my life once." As Deku would just say, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I've been taking care of my daughter when I'm not here." As everyone would say, "Oh, you have a daughter?" As Deku would be like, "Yes, I have a daughter. She's a little girl, but she's the joy of my life." As he would just smile. As King Orca would just say, "A doting father and an ex-soldier. My, isn't there anything else you will surprise us with?" As Deku would just say, "Well, who knows?" As Asui would know that Deku's the father of Mina, and she would confront him about that, and ask if he had an affair with, anyone else while he was doing things with Mina. Deku would just say no, he doesn't care enough about other people. As basically, he would just tell her to butt out and mind her own business. As basically, he would leave school, and he would be on his way to Mina's house, but once again, his tracker would start dinging, as he would notice that Inko's close. So, Deku would reach into his car, as he would pull out his briefcase with his DeathStroke gear in it, as he would gear up and go from rooftop to rooftop. As he would watch Inko, and he would have this unimaginable rage building inside of him, as he would look and just see that Inko is about to head into this house. As he would look and notice that that's not her husband, as Inko was seeing some other man behind her husband's back, and they would start to have sexual relationships, as Deku would be appalled by his mother's sluttiness, as he would move on, but remembering this, as he would also take pictures and send them to her husband's office, and he would say that there was no address, no one knew that he just dropped them off at Night Eye's office, and basically no one would know who did it, but Night Eye would get the pictures, as he would start flipping through and seeing Inko and another man having sex, as he would be heartbroken, as Night Eye would just say that he's going to go get his daughter from school, as he takes his daughter out of school early, and basically he would just say that they're gonna be staying away from her mother for a while, as she would say, but why? And Night Eye would just say that it's something that they're arguing about, but it's gonna be alright. As basically Deku would start just watching exactly where they're going, as Deku is not wanting to destroy this little girl's life too badly, so he'll leave her a father, but the mother must die. As he heads off, and basically he finds where Inko's walking, as he kicks her right through an alley, as she would fall and stumble as she would get into the back of the alley where no one would see them, as Deku would pick her up by the hair, he would punch her straight in the face, bloodying her, as he would slam her head into the brick wall, as he would break her leg and snap her arm, as Inko would be in so much pain and screaming, but Deku would easily shut her up by breaking her jaw to where she couldn't talk or anything. So Inko would be bloodied and broken, as Deku would take off his mask, as he would pull her by the hair and forcing her to look up at him, as he would see her face with absolute fear on it. He would smile, as he would say, "Your burden has come back from the dead," as she would just say, "My God, Izuku?" As basically Deku would just say, "I'm not sure God had anything to do with it, but yes, it's me." And she's just like, "My son, I'm so sorry," as Deku would punch her straight in the face, as he would just say, "You're not sorry." And the whole reason why she's able to talk is because Deku, even though he did like kind of break her jaw off, he is like putting it back to where she can move it to talk. So it's not going to be a permanent thing, but he's just holding it in place so she can talk. But he's just like punching her over and over again as he holds her jaw again, and she says, "Speak." As she says, I'm sorry," as Deku says, Are you really? All those times you hit me, abused me. You are the worst mother in existence, and yet here you are, acting like none of that happened, like your past couldn't come back to haunt you, that you were living a carefree life. All that money you got sure did score you a nice new husband. Oh, and what's that? You replaced me with a daughter. I bet she's never been beaten. I bet she's never been called useless, a burden. Right? I bet you've never even thought of trying to sell her off." As Inko would just start crying, as Deku would say, "I'm done hearing you talk." As he would take out one of his swords, as he would slam it straight into Inko's stomach. And then he would push a button, and the sword would start heating up, as her insides would be starting to burn, as the wound would start to cauterize, but the blood would still be trying to push its way out, so it would have blood clots just pouring out of Inko from her stomach and her back, as the pain would be so unimaginable. Deku would place a timed detonator right there on her chest, and would break her other arm so she couldn't move it, as he would arm the timer for 5 minutes, and he would leave her there, broken, bloodied, and dying, and he would leave his sword right in there. So he would just leave, but making sure that the fingerprints wouldn't be there. So as he would leave and disappear, 5 minutes later, there's a huge explosion in a back alley. All the police and pro heroes in the immediate area are called, as they are suspecting it's an act of terrorism. But when they get there, all they see is a charred corpse and a destroyed, fragmented sword on the ground. As Night Eye gets called in as he leaves his daughter with his parents. As basically he would walk into the back alley as he would see the charred corpse, but would be able to identify it as his wife by the ring that was left on the charred finger. As he starts to cry, as he breaks down there, as all of the other police officers start to comfort him, as now Masa's there and comforts him the most, since him and Night Eye would share a bond of having working together with All Might. So they would be kind of like pseudo brothers in a way, but they would have a lot of respect for each other. As they ask, do they know who did this? As they say no, there's nothing that they can go on. Not the explosion, not any type of fingerprints, nor the sword. As Night Eye says that this is terrible. And that he should have looked into the future. He should have prevented this, as he realizes that he's going to try to look into the future. As he does, and he sees a man in black, orange, and white, as the face mask is split with a two-toned color scheme, half orange, half black, with white eyes. As he would see and he would go over reports and would say, DeathStroke. It was probably DeathStroke. As basically Deku would head back home at this time, as him, Mina, and Eri would be with Mina's parents, as Deku would decide to stay over there with them for the night. As basically Mina would realize that Deku's missing a sword, and would ask if he misplaced it or forgot it, and Deku would say he kind of abandoned it. It got broken, so he trashed it. So she's just like, okay, how'd it break? And Deku's like, oh, don't worry about it. And that's when Deku would receive a text, as he would look at his phone and would have some sort of symbol on there. And he would recognize it, as a sense of dread would fall upon him. As the text read, nice little family you got there. Huh, Deathstroke. As the symbol is kind of like a hive with a sword on it. As Deku would look and would realize that Jackal's been watching him. So he texts the number back saying, face me tonight. We end this. As basically the Jackal says, see you there. As Deku would prepare for battle, as he would leave his God Killer blades with Mina, seeing that there might be people that would try to harm them, and those blades would be the one thing to save her life. As basically she would agree. And this is when Mina's parents would find out that Deku's actually a mercenary. As they would be shocked as Deku would be gearing up, as they would realize Mina is in a relationship with DeathStroke. As her parents would start to cry, saying, why did you get tangled up with such a bad man? As Eri would say, he's not a bad man. I know bad men. He's not one. As they would listen to Eri's story, and they would see Deku in a better light, but Deku would say, don't get me wrong, I am a monster. I do kill people for money. That's not changing. But I don't kill innocent women or children. That's just something that's against my code. I'm sorry, but I have to go. This is something that's putting my family in danger. You guys are included in that. I will stop this tonight. As basically Mina says, you'll never quit being Deathstroke. But that's okay, because I know you'll always keep us safe. As Deku just says, I'll do my best to. As he would run off and get ready for the fight of his life. As Deku would run from rooftop to rooftop, he would get to the designated meeting spot. But that's when he would notice Jackal's not alone, as he would see an army of villains coming out of the woodworks. You would have this muscle-bound maniac who looks like he's absolutely ready to start the killing. You would have Jackal, and then you would have a few others. Just some no-names. But Deku would look around as he would draw his sword, saying, "You're gonna regret this." As he would fight his way through the no-names, as they were easy enough to kill, and Muscular's trying to hit Deku, but Deku's dodging him, and then he detonates a bomb on top of Muscular, blowing him up, severely burning him, but not killing him. As Muscular would realize that hurt, but it was just his muscle fibers that took the brunt of the explosion, as Deku would realize he's gonna have to try a lot harder. So he takes out his gun and starts shooting. He tries shooting the Jackal, but it just bounces off, since he has bulletproof armor. As he would rush at Deku and would try to severely hurt Deku, as Deku would fight back and would be able to put up a good enough fight, but it wouldn't be that astronomical, or it wouldn't be that much of an effort, considering the amount of forces he's facing with Muscular, getting back up on his feet, as Muscular would slam his fist into Deku, as he would be sent flying, as Deku would hit the back, as he would realize that he's way in over his head, and that this isn't going to end well for him. And that's when he has someone come to his aid, with feathers launching right at these guys, as Deku would look up and would see the pro hero Hawks, as Hawks would say, "Looks like this fight's a bit unfair," as he would take two of his feathers land and use them as swords, as he would just tell Hawks, "You go for the big guy, Jackal's mine," as he would start fighting Jackal on more of an even ground, not having to worry about Muscular, since Hawks is back there taking care of him. And Hawks is dancing around Muscular, using his feathers to really just hurt the guy, and it goes pretty well for a majority of the time, but Hawks eventually is caught by Muscular and has his head slammed into the ceiling or the roof of the building, as Hawks gets put through the roof down into the floor below. So basically, Deku has to worry about Muscular again, but he's nearly got the Jackal beat, as he twists his blades around as he slams it in, as one goes through the Jackal's arm and the other one pierces Muscular's throat, as Muscular would start to bleed out, as he would cough up blood, as he would fall back dead. As for Jackal, he would honestly just get his arm cut off, but he would blast Deku with electricity, sending a shock to his system, basically almost knocking him out, as then he would just stop the bleeding by cauterizing the wound with his own electricity, and would just start beating Deku over and over again. He would take Deku's gun and shoot him 6 times, 2 in the chest, 3 in his left leg, and then once more in the shoulder, as Deku would be trying to crawl his way away, as Hawks would get up and try to attack the Jackal, but would be blasted by him, and he would say, "I'll be right back, DeathStroke. Let me go take care of a flying rat." As he would put his boot on the back of Hawks, as he would grab his wing and tear it out of Hawks' back, as Hawks would be screaming in pain, as he would tear the other one out. Then he would take Hawks' neck and snap it. Hawks would die, as Deku would still be trying to crawl his ways back, as the Jackal would grab Deku and just beat him so hard that he breaks his mask, as Deku lies there, as the Jackal says, "Well, look at here. It's the little puppy I tortured all those years ago. You got more skilled, rat, but you're still gonna die here. And that's when basically someone comes to Deku's aid, Batman. As Batman would kick Jackal straight in the head, as he would start fighting the Jackal, as he would destroy the Jackal, completely dismantling him. Deku would watch, but he would decide that now's not the time. He needs to get away. So, he would fall off the roof and onto some garbage that would break his fall as he would escape. He would be badly injured, but he would still be able to escape. As Deku would lay there for a little bit, taking his short knife and digging all the bullets out of his skin, the wounds would instantly heal, as he would get back up and go home. As Batman would still be fighting the Jackal, as Batman would beat him and the Jackal would try to kill Batman by blowing himself up, but Batman would dodge out of the way as the Jackal would blow himself up, killing himself. As Batman would call for the cops, as they would come and see Deathstroke's broken mask, as Batman would say he got away, but he's injured. I don't think he can get very far. As Batman would go down there, trying to look for Deathstroke, but know that he's nowhere to be seen. Even the bleeding has stopped and the trail is cold. So Batman is infuriated as he punches the side of the wall, just pissed off. As he would look up there and just decide that this isn't going to end well. So basically, the cops hold a funeral for Hawks as the hero agency just decides to tell them all about how Hawks did a noble thing, trying to take on a group of villains by himself. Because they're honestly labeling Deathstroke as a villain. And that's not something that's actually true. And Batman knows it, as he gets up in their face saying Deathstroke's no villain. He's a mercenary. Don't give him any more notoriety than you have to, or people will die. As basically the council of the hero agency gets in Batman's face and says, oh yeah, like who's gonna die? And that's when they're shot straight through the skull. As one member drops, another one drops behind him, seeing the bullet pierce two skulls with one shot. And Batman says, see, I told you. Label him as a villain, and this is what happens. As basically the rest of them are hiding behind their desks saying, well, you're a hero, do something. As Batman stands back and says, no, I'm not going after him like this. That's going to get me killed. I'm going to be smart about this, and I'm doing it my way. You guys are all just a bunch of cowards that want to label people and don't even risk your own lives to prove it. As pretty much he walks out of there. As basically the whole hero agency makes another statement saying that they were wrong to label Deathstroke as a villain. He is indeed a mercenary for hire. They wanted to kind of publicize and get his name out there so a hunt could be, triggered down. But after the death of two members of the hero agency from the hands of Deathstroke, they have reconsidered and are willing to work with Deathstroke if he is willing to turn himself in. They can strike up a bargain and a deal, and for the mercenary that he is, it would be a lifesaver for any potential loved ones that Deathstroke may have. As basically All For One's laughing at that, seeing how he hired Jackal to kill Deathstroke and failed. So he thinks that things need to have a more personal touch. So he decides to call in every favor, and at this time the sports festival's going on, and Deku's not really watching it. He doesn't care. He's getting better gear and equipping himself more and more as his mask is starting to get like an upgrade to be more resistant, as he gets better blades and decides that he's going to carry the God Killers on him at all times now. considering his other blades keep getting snapped, broken, or blown up. It's a safe bet that he should start carrying the God Killers around, since they can automatically reform themselves if they are broken or shattered. As basically, Deku says that he's sorry, but he has to put them in a safe house for the time being. And that's when Batman breaks down, Deathstroke's door as he starts to say, I'm not here to fight, but Deku doesn't care. He sees this as a threat on him and his family as he marches straight towards basically Nightwing, who is Batman, Dick Grayson, as he just says, yeah, I take it you got my little gift, right? As that is when Batman says, so it was you. As he just says, Slade. As Deku just says, not Slade. Izuku. As he takes off the mask, preparing to fight. As basically Grayson returns the favor, taking off his mask and preparing to fight. As he fights basically Deku toe to toe, as Deku's healed up and is way better equipped and not tired from having to fight off an army of villains. So he's actually pretty good, and he's able to get the better of Batman as he cuts Batman's arm off, saying, sorry, Bats, but you're not getting me. As pretty much Batman just looks at him and says, so this is where I die? So be it. At least the people will know you don't do anything for a just cause. As basically Deku looks at him and says, you're not the first superhero I've killed. I killed Superboy. I've killed a Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Red Arrow, Arsenal. I killed pretty much all the Arrow family. I killed your Nightwing. Oh, that Starfire girl you were so sweet on back in the day. It was a real pain in the ass, but she's dead too. Raven? Yeah, it took a while, but killed her eventually. Everyone that you care about in life is dead. Beast Boy, Cyborg, all your precious little titans, your sidekick. The only people you could ever have left in life is that precious wife of yours, Barbara. And out of respect for you and your fighting spirit, I won't touch her. Not at all. As Nightwing looks at him with anger in his eyes. Well, Batman. I keep saying Nightwing because it's Dick Grayson. But no. Batman looks at him with anger in his eyes as he just says, DeathStroke! As Deku shoots him in the head. As basically, he's just happy with his work, taking Batman's mask and basically throwing Dick's body out a window as he free falls 500 stories down to the pavement and splatters. As basically Gotham City mourns the loss of Batman as a huge funeral is held for him. And unlike when Bruce died and passed the mantle on to Dick didn't have a successor in mind. It was going to be Damian, but Damian's dead, which means the only person that can take up the Batman mantle is Tim. Tim Drake becomes the new Batman, but he decides it's better to leave Deathstroke alone. He's not skilled enough to outfight Dick, and he knows that since Dick lost, he's nowhere skilled enough to outfight Deathstroke. So, he decides to leave it be for now. As pretty much, Deku just decides that this was fun, but it's time to go. So, he moves them to their new house, which is isolated heavily in a forest somewhere in Japan. Since Mina is no longer a student at UA, she really has no reason to be out there, as Mina's family's moved out there with her, so they can take care of her while Deku's on his jobs. And basically, Deku decides there's one more person's life he needs to make a living hell. That he hasn't forgotten what he did to him in the past as well. As basically Mina says, "You've had enough vengeance, you've shed enough blood, aren't you satisfied?" Deku would just say, "Not yet." As she says, "How much longer are you going to endanger our family?" As Deku says, "Well, for one, Eri's not out of danger yet either. That Yakuza group that held her, experimented on her, I've been tracking. And of course you had the Meta Liberation Army still running wild, causing death and mayhem. I need to take them out too. I need to make sure this world is safe as humanly possible before our child is born." As Mina would see that he's not just doing this for her own personal satisfaction, he's doing this to make sure that their family is kept safe. And she says, "Just don't hurt any of my ex-classmates. Please." Deku says Bakugo's the only one he's after. As pretty much Mina just says, "Very well." As DeathStroke would leave, as he would head on out, and pretty much he would be hunting down Bakugo's family, as he would find his father, and he wouldn't directly kill him. No, he would sabotage his car brakes and his gas line, and would set kind of a pipe bomb in there. So while Bakugo's father is heading to work and he notices it's a red light, his brakes aren't working, and the more he pushes on the brakes, the more the bomb counts down, until finally his car explodes, killing him. As Bakugo gets the news that his father's dead, as he's just like, what happened? As he would say it was a car explosion. And then he would get even worse news. His mother, Mitsuki, she's dead. As Bakugo would be crushed, as he's just like, what the hell happened? And they would say that they found her crucified on the door of his house. And pretty much Bakugo would be destroyed. Tears would come pouring down his face, as he would just be like, I wish I wouldn't have argued with them so much. I never told them how much I loved them." And pretty much how Mitsuki died is Deku paid her a visit. While she tried to fight back, Deku sliced off her leg and then impaled her with a sword and went down with it, gutting her. And he would snap her neck, take her arms, and he would take, some huge ass nails and would nail them straight through her wrist to the doorway. And he did that all while Bakugo was at school. And nobody really saw Deku since he was so quiet. And pretty much he would disappear, as that's when we're back at current times. As Deku would say, "Katsuki, what's wrong?" As Bakugo would just say, "Izuku, where have you been?" He says, "Well, my wife still has morning sickness, so I was taking care of her for a little bit. She's fine now, so I'm here. Why are you crying? Lose?" As they would tell him that his family's been killed, as Deku's just like, "I'm so sorry to hear that. It must be hard for you to move forward with all that pain and suffering." As Bakugo's just like, "What would you know about it?" As Deku would say, "I would know quite a bit. My own mother sold me, after all. I was used as a test lab subject, so honestly, I know quite a bit about pain and suffering, and how hard it is to move on. At least you had a happy little family life, right? Oh, despite their son being so pitiful, such a bully, even at such a young age, praise for his amazing quirk would go to his head, and he would bully some quirkless little boy who was supposed to be like a brother to him. As your friends would egg you on over the years, the abuse would turn from verbal to physical, and that would lead to the boy's own mother abusing him beating him every day, calling him useless, a burden, nothing that could help her get ahead in life, just a shackle to chain her down that would lead her to being so desperate that she would sell him and tell him that she never loved him, that all he was to her was a burden. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't know nothing about pain and suffering, right? As Bakugo's eyes would widen, finally learning what happened to Deku all those years, as he would realize that he's kind of at fault for what happened to Deku, as he would get on his knees and ask for forgiveness. Deku would say, "I'm way past you asking for forgiveness," as he would knee Bakugo straight in the face, as he would break his nose, as blood would spew out, as Deku would just pull his hair back and say, "I'm so past you just being able to say sorry and making it all better. You've lived a pretty good life up till now, haven't you?" As people would say, "What? I know what you went through, but still, like, you can't be doing this to him. He just lost his family." And Deku's like, "What the fuck should I care?" And they're like, "Don't you have any empathy?" As Deku's says, "All empathy died when I became a slave." As pretty much they all just try to pry Deku off of Bakugo, and that's when Deku just unleashes like his inner DeathStroke, as he takes off his clothes to reveal the DeathStroke costume, as he would put his mask back on, and they would all see that he's DeathStroke. As Bakugo's eyes would go wide, Deku would take the sword and drive it down into Bakugo's chest, piercing his heart, killing him. And he did that in front of everyone. So now everybody knows that Deku is DeathStroke, and he's being hunted. But not before. He escapes from everyone at UA. He ends up killing a few more teachers. Gang Orca executed. Then Midnight killed and hung. As for Vlad, he's burned alive. Nezu skinned, as all the other students there would be knocked out. As for Tamaki, who tried his hardest, he would be dismembered and then decapitated. Nejire, well, she gets shot twice through the chest, dead. Mirio was away with Night Eye, hunting down other things, so when he comes back and finds his best friend killed, his lover shot, and all of the teachers he looked up to executed, as pretty much they want to know who did this, and they would say DeathStroke. As pretty much Deku, he's going on a full rampage now. Like, he wants every score settled. And the only reason he killed those students was because they tried to fight back against him. If they would have just let him go, he wouldn't have killed them. As news about this reaches Mina, she's heartbroken. The one thing she asked him to do, he didn't do it. And she starts to cry, as pretty much like the heartbreak enough, along with all the stress, causes her to collapse, as Aries sighed as the tears start rolling down her eyes. And that's when heroes would swarm Deku's house looking for him, as they would find Mina and Eri unconscious. Like, Eri would be not unconscious, but she would be there with Mina's unconscious body. Mina's parents, and basically they would take them all away, taking Mina to a hospital. Her parents would be held in a detention center, and Eri would be placed in child services. As Deku would look around, as he would realize that he just fucked up big time. But oh well, it's worth it. He can just go somewhere else as soon as he gets his family. As he returns home too late, finding the house trashed, as he would be immediately infuriated and he would head out, but that's when he would see that All Might is right there waiting for him. As All Might says, "It pains me that you chose to act so evilly. Who paid you to take them out?" Deku says he was just settling an old score with Bakugo. If people would have just butted out, they wouldn't have had to die. As basically All Might says, "Did you forget about that code of yours?" Deku says, "I'm sorry, but they had to be put down. It's the only way I was getting out of there." And he says, "The teachers?" And he said those were the most dangerous ones. They had to die. All Might says, "They did not! You are evil! I thought there was some good in you." And Deku would say, "And you thought wrong." As he would whip out the God Killer blades, as All Might would say, "I'm stopping you and taking you in or dying trying." As pretty much, Deku would just say, "It looks like you'll end up dying. I killed Batman. What could you do? I've killed a half Kryptonian fucking clone of Superman. I killed all of the Teen Titans. What can you do against me, old man?" As All Might would lunge straight at Deku, as Deku would already know all of All Might's fighting styles, as he would let All Might hit the swords, as they would absorb the energy of All Might's attack, as he would direct it right back at All Might in his weak spot, sending him flying through the forest, all the way into the city. As All Might would be spewing out blood, his weak spot would be collapsed in pain, as Deku would walk over there, put one gun to All Might's head, and would say, "I'm sorry, but the symbol of peace dies here for interfering with DeathStroke," as he would pull the trigger, killing All Might. As pretty much All For One would hear that All Might's dead and was killed by DeathStroke. So All For One decides to contact him, as DeathStroke answers the phone, as All For One says, "You ended up betraying me, but you ultimately, did complete your contract." As Deku says, "The contract is what matters, right?" As pretty much All For One says, "Yes, I know where the heroes are keeping your family." As Deku says, "Where?" All For One would say, "I could tell you that, or I could tell you that Yakuza group is heading over there to take Eri back. Right now as we speak. You could pretty much only get one back, but which one, that depends on you." And Deku realizes that Eri will be made a test subject again. All that hard work he did to make her happier, it'll be undone. But Mina, she's pregnant with his own child, and the cops have her. She's in a hospital. Deku makes the hardest decision of his life. He says, "Tell me where the Yakuza are. I'm not letting that child be a human lab rat again." And All For One says, "You would forsake your family to save a child." And Deku would say, "Yes." As he considers Eri his own daughter at that point. So All For One tells him where the Yakuza are, as Deku would rush over there to them. But All For One has one final trick up his sleeve, as he heads to the hospital, to where Mina's at. As he would get into that room, and then he would kill Mina and escape. As Mina's parents would find that their daughter's been killed at the hospital, tears would run down their eyes. Also, he would be finding out that when she comes to see Mina, Mina is dead. And she would be heartbroken. Tears would run down her eyes. The rest of their class would be just crying their hearts out, knowing what DeathStroke did and that it's all DeathStroke's fault, as Deku would rush through there, as he would kill all the Yakuza members that he could, getting straight to Rampa and that barrier guy, as he would say, yeah, got something for that, as he would throw out smoke bombs, as he would go around them, and he would plant several different bombs on that shield, as he would blow them all up simultaneously, completely overwhelming the guy. And that's when Deku would sneak up behind him, shoot him in the head, and then stab a sword straight through Rampa's neck, all in the cover of smoke, as he would continue killing and butchering every single one of them, until he got to Chisaki, who had his hands on Eri, as Deku would look at him and just say, "You, I'm going to kill you," as Chisaki would just say, "You didn't complete the contract, but there is a way to salvation. You could just let me walk out of here with her. I'll pay you the money, we'll walk our separate ways. I don't even care that you butchered my men. I can always find more." And that's when Deku would shoot Overhaul straight in the stomach, as Overhaul would double over in pain as Deku would keep shooting him, his legs, arms, and then his shoulder, and then he would shove his sword straight through Chisaki's stomach and electrify him, cooking his insides and killing him, as he would take Eri and walk out of there. As Eri would look and see the DeathStroke mask and would just say, "Papa, what happened to Mama?" And he says that they're heading there now. But before he can even get there, he sees a news broadcast about Mina Ashido dying while in police custody at a hospital by a villain. And Deku's eyes would grow wide. Anger would overtake him, tears would run down his face, and he knew that he was set up. As Mina's parents are crying as they would tell everything they knew about DeathStroke, his real name, and then Deku would see a warrant for his arrest. Izuku Midoriya wanted for multiple killings, as being known throughout Japan now as the mercenary DeathStroke. As Deku would realize there's no safe place for him. So he would take Eri and drop her off at Night Eye's office, saying that she has to be a big girl now. She can't stay with him anymore. Not after what happened. As pretty much she would just sit there as Bubble Girl would come out and immediately see Eri and take her into the office, as Eri wouldn't say a word about Deku. As basically Night Eye and Mirio would be able to read the future and would see where DeathStroke would go. And pretty much they get a call, as pretty much they answer it and they say it's DeathStroke. Night Eye says, "What?" As Deku would tell them if they want to fight him, he's on top of a building. Get there. He'll be waiting for them. As basically they would say they're coming and they'll bring the full force of the law. As Deku would say, "Go ahead, add the death of All Might to that list." As pretty much they would. As now Night Eye would be extremely pissed off, as Mirio would say, "Sir, it's okay." But Deku would make another call to All For One, telling him he wants to meet. As All For One would get there, as Deku would say, "You fucking bastard, you set me up. You killed the one woman I loved and my unborn child. And then you made it impossible for me to live a life with my daughter anymore." As pretty much All For One would be laughing and says, "I guess we're even now. You took my future from me as well, my successor, but all's not lost. There is yet another deal to be made." Join me and be my successor. And Deku says, you really think I would work with the man that killed my wife? You're scum. I will kill you. As he pulls out the God Killer blades, as All For One would just say, oh, what's this? Trying to kill me? As pretty much he would rush right at Deku, as Deku would absorb the energy that All For One was going to put out, and he would impale and then blow All For One's body clean apart. As someone else was watching Deku, someone in red with a sword of his own. And he would notice that before he could get the chance to go and talk to Deku, heroes were there. And pretty much Deku squaring off with Night Eye and Mirio. As he would just immediately put down his swords and would say, I'm not going to make this easy for you, but you're free to take me in if you can beat me. As he would drop his guns as well, as he would only be interested in hand-to-hand combat. Endeavor would be there, as he would rush straight for DeathStroke, knowing if he took him down, that he would earn the right of the title as #1 hero. As the fight is broadcast all over Japan, everyone's able to watch it, including Dabi and Toga, and of course Spinner, as well as Stain, who's watching it up close and personal. And pretty much Deku's just saying, you guys are a bunch of hypocrites. You kill, same as me, we're all monsters here. Heroes, villains, mercenaries, what's it matter? All we're doing is just looking out for our own self-interest. But I admit, my life has taken a turn for the worst. So, I'm not going down without a fight. I'm venting all my anger and frustrations out on you. As he meets Endeavor head on, as he would dive under Endeavor's legs, stabbing it with one of his short knives, as Endeavor would feel the pain and would get down to one knee, as Deku would be up there and just knee him straight through the chin, fracturing his skull, as he would start beating on Endeavor. And that's when Night Eye would come around and would hit Deku straight in the back of the leg, dropping him, and Mirio would come up and punching him straight from the ground, as Deku would scoot back, as he would just be on the look out for more attacks, as Mirio would go back under the ground, and Deku's just like, I see. So he would be up in the air when Mirio would come up, as he would throw a knife, hitting Mirio right in the shoulder. And Mirio would scream out in pain from that, as he would hit Night Eye right up there with an uppercut, knocking him back, as Night Eye would be determined to take this guy in for killing his wife. And Deku tells Night Eye, you know, my mother seemed to have fancied you quite a bit. As Night Eye's like, what? As Deku takes off his mask, throwing it to the side, saying, the name's Izukumi Doria. Guess that makes you my stepdad, right? As pretty much Deku just looks at Night Eye. Night Eye is shocked, knowing that this is basically his son from Inko. As he would look at Deku and see Deku smiling. As Endeavor would come across, as Deku would just dodge Endeavor, grab him by the neck, and snap it on live TV. As people would just see how deadly Deku is. And that's when Night Eye would pick up Deku's gun and would shoot him twice, right in his knees. As Deku would drop, as Mirio would get over there and punch him straight in the face, yelling, power, as Deku would fall down. And Deku would look up and would say, you guys should thank me. After all, I wiped out so much filth for you today. Killed All For One. Killed a whole Yakuza that was experimenting on a young girl. trying to develop something that could destroy all quirks. As Night Eye would say, if you were her son, why did you turn out this way? And Night Eye's daughter is watching, seeing Night Eye hold a gun to her brother's head. She would be just so traumatized at this. Her mother had a son, and Deku would start relaying the truth about Inko Midoriya to Night Eye, how that she would beat him, and then eventually sold him off. Night Eye would be shooken in his resolve, knowing that that couldn't be the woman he married. And Deku's like, oh, but it was. Ever wondered how she got all that money? Yeah, that was the price that was paid for her selling me. As he would jig the bullets right out of his knees, healing and head straight up to hit Night Eye again. But Mirio would come up, and Deku would actually take a fall, looking as if he's beaten by Mirio. As he would be arrested, and Mirio would be taken to Night Eye's office and congratulated on his victory over DeathStroke. But Mirio would feel something off, something weird about this. Night Eye didn't like it whatsoever. As Stain would make a public message supporting DeathStroke, saying that DeathStroke is the one true person that can clean up this world. He's done more than the heroes ever did, as all they know is what DeathStroke did to the heroes. But now, he's actually telling them what he did to the villains, showing footage of him killing villains, countless of them, time after time after time. As people would start to come around and saying that, yeah, maybe DeathStroke is the way to go. As they would demand for DeathStroke's release, as they would be demanding him be released to continue his work. They think he's just reforming society for them, making things better. As that's when Toya would come out, aka Dabi, with his message about the truth behind the Todoroki family. Endeavor's name would be tarnished, as pretty much he would reveal himself to be Toya Todoroki as well. But unlike this time, he's never killed anyone. He's not a killer. Not yet. As pretty much Endeavor's name would go down in the history books as being a terrible man. The truth would come out about the Yakuza, what they were doing. Deku would be seen as a hero, as the truth would come out on who killed Mina, being a villain that Deku refused to work with and double-crossed. As basically the parents of Mina would feel guilty for exposing him like that, as Eri would say, that's my papa. And pretty much Bubble Girl would be concerned, as Night Eye would hear Eri say that and realize that she's being corrupted by him. As Deku is on his way to prison, as he gets there and is filed away, he's actually put in the same cell as one Hisashi Midoriya, who is in there for a different crime this time. As Deku looks and says, so, what's your name? As he says, the name's Hisashi Midoriya. I'm your biological father, kid. As Deku would smile and say, good to know. As he would beat Hisashi to death in the jail cell. And that's when a raid would be done on Tartarus, as Deku would be sprung from his cell by an army of a small unit, basically led by Stain, Toga, Spinner, and Dabi. As they would break Deku out and give him his gear back, Deku would suit up as DeathStroke, saying, it's time I took my daughter back. As he would get out of jail and say, this time, they won't catch me, because I won't let them. As Stain's like, wait a minute, you let yourself get caught, didn't you? And Deku says, yes, I did. As he says, if you guys are willing to follow me, then that makes you guys my band of mercenaries. As Stain would say, I'm only interested in killing false heroes. Deku says, expanded. You kill villains as well now. As Stain would say, yes, that will truly make a difference. As Dabi would say, he appreciates him taking care of Endeavor, but he's got his own issues with the Todoroki family. As Deku would say, I can help you get revenge. And pretty much, UA would be crumbling from the inside out. With no one there to really help the students, the college would dissolve, as all the Hero Corps students would be forced to go elsewhere. Even the general studies people would have to go somewhere else. So, Deku kind of just ruined UA's reputation, as it would be crumbling since he was employed there. And with ongoing support for DeathStroke, like, he would become legendary, as he would continue on, as he would fight DeathStroke, killing him with his new group and the Liberation Army, as Toga would awaken her quirk and finally be able to use everyone whose blood she uses quirk, meaning that she takes some of Stain's blood and uses it. As for Stain, he would be an incredible asset. Refining his training from fighting with Deku, he would become the new Jericho, just without the whole, psychic powers. As for the Meta Liberation Army, they would be completely annihilated, not a single survivor. And Chigantomakia would stay locked away. As for the Todoroki family, Deku would help Dabi take them all out, starting with Rei, as he would allow Dabi to burn her alive in the mental institute. Next, Natsuo, as Deku would impale him, as Dabi would look into his eyes and say, sorry little brother, as he would set him on fire. Fuyumi would be one of the harder ones to take down because of her quirk, but Deku would shoot her 2 times in the legs and 2 times in the shoulders, making her drop, as Toya would burn her alive as well. The last one would be Shoto. This one would be the most difficult challenge yet, as he would be amped on his rage and hate for DeathStroke and Dabi, as Deku would cut off one of Shoto's legs and one of his arms, as that's when Dabi would come in and put his hand right on Shoto's face, burning him alive. Shoto would be reduced to ashes, not even a corpse left to bury. As Deku would just be like, well, money's money, right? As after he got his team's loyalty to him, they would start doing odd jobs around the world as mercenaries, and they would be known as the Death Squad, bringing death to all those deserving and even those who are not. As Deku would sit back and relax after securing Eri by means of killing Bubble Girl, who was alone and looking after her, kind of sloppy on Night Eye's behalf. As for Mirio, he would be allowed to live, knowing that Deathstroke's out there and could kill him at any point in time. As Mirio would just be stuck to Japan, as Deku would go back to Gotham, ruling it as the lead person who killed Batman twice. As for Red Hood, he would be killed by Stain, as Dabi would take up the moniker of Red Hood just with using blue flames. Toga, she would be there as Deku's new fling, something that could help him relieve his stress, but no one could ever take the place of Mina. And that's how this would end. This is what would happen if Deku was Deathstroke. My take. Hope you guys enjoyed. As always,